right, is everybody ready? Oh, all right. We're going to go ahead and call the County Commission meeting of February 6th to order. We'll start with a moment of silent reflection for our first responders and members of the armed forces, followed by an invocation by Pastor Jim Gallagher with Calvary Chapel of Vero Beach, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance by myself. Everybody would please rise.
Well, good morning. My name is Jim Gallagher, and I'm the pastor of Calvary in Vero Beach, and I've been a citizen here of Indian River County for 25 years, and I want to thank you for your service to our community, and I'd like to pray for you this morning. So, Father, we come to you. We thank you for your grace. Lord, your word tells us that in our weakness, your grace is made strong. And so we're asking that for each of those that sit in these seats and make the decisions that affect the lives of so many in our community. We pray, Father, for your blessing upon them. We know that no authority is given to man except that which is given by you. So help them to embrace that. And Lord, as their charter really comes from that idea of promoting the general welfare and securing the blessings of liberty for the citizens, we pray that you'd help them in all of their decision making. Give them wisdom beyond their years and experience, and help them, Lord, as they seek to help us and serve us. And Lord, for those that serve, also we took a moment of silence for those that serve us, putting their lives on the lines, and we ask, God, your special blessing upon them and our community today. In Jesus' name, amen.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, commissioners. I'm going to do a little rearranging on the agenda, if y'all bear with me for a second. I'd like to move item 7A, a proclamation honoring Elise Bruce, to 5D. And then I would like to take the proclamations before the presentation, so we'll move presentation 5A to after the new item 5D. And then Commissioner Ehrman's item, there's several people that need to get back to work, so I'd like to move that to after consent.
That sounds great.
So y'all are gonna have to keep me straight and I remember where I'm supposed to be.
Madam Chair, so moved.
Second.
All right. With that, we'll move on to presentations. Our first presentation is a presentation of proclamation recognizing African-American pioneer, Reverend Carl L. Darasaw. Mr. Darasaw, are you here? Come on up. Bring your family with you. And it's my pleasure to read this proclamation. This is a proclamation recognizing African-American pioneer Reverend Carl L. Darasaw. Whereas Indian River County celebrates African-American pioneers who, through their service in the business, public, and elected arenas, have paved the way for this and future generations. And whereas Reverend Darasaw attended Gifford Elementary and Gifford High School before moving to New York, where he received a bachelor's degree in psychology, followed by a doctor of ministry. And whereas he previously worked as a parachute rigger for the U.S. Army, a hospital chaplain, teaching dean, and pastor. He has traveled throughout the United States and South Korea to help those in need by providing ministry services. And whereas, in 2016, Reverend Darasaw joined the Friendship Missionary Baptist Church in Gifford, where he has touched the lives of countless congregation members. Outside of church, he frequently dedicates his time to attending county school board and affordable housing committee meetings. And whereas, Reverend Darasaw is minister to the Fuel, F-U-E-L, men's group in Sebastian, a member of the American Legion Hall, and is building an alliance between African American and Jewish Americans. He is an avid supporter of Gifford Youth Achievement Center and the Gifford Historical Museum. Now therefore be it proclaimed by the Board of County Commissioners of Indian River County, Florida, that the actions of Reverend Carl L. Darasaw have greatly enriched Indian River County. He has selflessly dedicated his life to serve, support, and assist members of our community. Adopted this 6th day of February, 2024, and signed by all 5 county commissioners. And Reverend, it's our pleasure to present you with this proclamation. Congratulations, and thank you for all you do for our community.
Thank you. Thank you. I would like to thank you for this great honor. For certainly, I never dreamed that I'll come back home to be honored in such a way. I stand on the shoulders of many great pioneers of the Gifford community, that of Victor Hart Sr., Ralph Lundy, Joe Outlet, even my mom, who was a community worker as well, and just passed on last year at the ripe age of 101. So I'm greatly indebted to all of you. And as I stand here, I'm thinking about my pilgrimage. As I left here, Vero Beach High School, 5 days after graduating high school, I went to New York to, again, further my education. Couldn't afford to go to college, so I was a night student. That's why I don't play golf. I was too busy after work studying, what have you. But I thank God for this great privilege. And as I stand, I think about the pilgrimage of Moses. He had gone away for some 40 years, but at some point, he met God in a burning bush. Likewise, in the cold and snow of Minnesota, God spoke to my heart to bring me back for such a time as this. And so, because there was much work to be done. When I left, we had social gathering places for our youth. We had adult places for our adults. We had restaurants, theaters, bus companies, and in a way, we were thriving. We were never hungry because we had chickens running around the streets. And all we had to do is go grab the chickens and wring their neck, and it was on. But again, I understand the reason why I've come. And so basically, one day I heard the voice of the God saying, out of all that needs to be done, whom shall I send? And who will go for us? I said, here, my Lord, send me. So I solicit your participation. I solicit your hearts of compassion to join forces with us in the Gifford community, because at that time we had a song, give me that old Gifford religion. It was good enough for my father, and it's good enough for me. So I ask you to join forces with us to make Gifford a thriving community like we once had. So again, thank you for this great honor, and I appreciate it, and may God bless you all.
Madam Chair, I just wanted to point out something that was very unique, and how it happened, I don't know. See, the proclamation states that Carl Darasaw went to New York, and we had worked together a couple of times, and specifically on the Gifford Water Tower project, if we want to call it that.
Yes.
And we were at a subsequent meeting, and I remember seeing these two fine individuals sitting across the way, stepping up to the plate, and, well, Reverend Darasaw is looking at my name tag, and he said, he just, out of the clear blue, he said, you know, I work with somebody with that name. I thought it was odd because there was only 3 of us. And, oh, you went to New York. Well, he went on to explain that the geographics, the occupation, and we didn't mention that occupation in that proclamation, but I guess it was about 50 years ago,
35 or so.
35, 40, somewhere around there. I know I was about this big. Carl Darasaw, at the time, worked with my dad in New York. And he remembered him. And my dad had mentioned, my dad's gone now. He would have been close to Carl's mom's age. So at this point, I just want to say thank you for coming back home, making a difference in the community, and making a difference back then, too.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
And you have a tremendous guiding light right next to you.
Amen.
Would you like to introduce your guiding light?
Absolutely. His name is Jesus Christ.
Well,
But it's my better half, Reverend Hannah Darasaw. Amen. She works with me. I met her in New
Madam
York as
Chair.
well, and along with that, I have my oldest sister here, Miss Helen Carter. Amen. And so many. Oh, okay. I'm also my younger sister here, Barbara McGriff. So we thank God. Amen. So many others. Amen. This is Johnny May, and many that you know, but Joe Hawkins and Wilfred Hart. So again, we're here to say thank you. Again, some of you are homegrown, some of you are ingrown. You came from out and have grown, amen. But again, we thank you for this great honor that you bestowed upon us this day. Thank you so much.
Commissioner Miles?
thank you.
Thank you. I have a personal thank you that I would like to extend to the Reverend. I met Reverend Darasaw after an Affordable Housing Advisory Committee meeting the summer before last. And a few weeks after that, when I was hit by a truck, he was one of the first people to call me and prayed over me by phone. And that was such a comfort to me at the time. And I'm thankful that I survived, and I'm thankful to be able to extend my appreciation to you publicly for that call. And then after that, I attended a service at your church, and the entire congregation prayed for me, and it's something I'll never forget. Thank you.
Thank you.
Reverend, you want to bring all your family as well?
Sure.
The sisters, if they want to
Absolutely.
stand next to you?
Absolutely.
I don't know, I mean,
I do.
they might not want to.
They want to come. They will come.
They will.
Joe, Wilfred, Jenna May, please come. Please come.
You want to come right on up here, and then we'll take a picture for you.
Good try. I got a manual.
All right, thank you so much. Congratulations.
All right, yeah.
All right. right, our next proclamation is a presentation of proclamation recognizing African-American pioneer Ernie James Greer. It will be presented by Commissioner Flesher. Mr. Greer, would you like to come on up with your entourage or yourself?
Bring
You
the
got
camera.
you got the
own
camera, that's all
entourage.
you need.
We wouldn't recognize Ernie
No,
without
we
his
wouldn't.
camera. Good morning.
Good
And-
morning.
And welcome, Ernie. I have to say, it's a privilege and honor to present this proclamation. I know you've heard this proclamation. We presented this proclamation at the Martin Luther King dinner, and we got him once, and now we're going to make him talk about it. With that, let me present the proclamation, and then we'll get started with that. This proclamation is recognizing African-American pioneer Ernie James Greer. Whereas Indian River County celebrates African-American pioneers who, through their service in the business, public, and elected arenas, have paved the way for this and future generations. Whereas Ernie James Greer was born and raised in Indian River County, he moved to Gifford in 1958, and in 1969 he attended Vero Beach High School as it was desegregated for the first time. And whereas Mr. Greer worked as an EMT for a volunteer ambulance helping the vulnerable and those in need before enlisting in the United States Army. Whereas upon being honorably discharged, Mr. Greer joined the Press Journal, where he worked as a cameraman, photographer, and pressman, and was frequently the first on the scene in many of the county's major events and cases. He would later create the Indian River Times newspaper and the Gifford Life magazine. Whereas in 2021, Mr. Greer was instrumental in the fruition of the Gifford Water Tower, which now stands as a symbol of the resiliency and pride Gifford residents exemplify. Now therefore be it proclaimed by the Board of County Commissioners of Indian River County, Florida, that we applaud Ernie James Greer and his outstanding contributions to the community. He has been paramount in preserving the culture, the heritage, and sense of place in Gifford while showing great passion for its great citizens. This was duly adopted in the 23rd day of January 2024 and signed by all 5 county commissioners. Ernie, thank you so much for what you do, the great passion and sincerity and dedication that you utilize, that lens that you're holding to show a positive and effective view of Gifford, Indian River County, Florida, United States of America. Your passion is well received and shown throughout the community, and thank you for doing what you do.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner. Didn't do anything special. What I do,
Hello, Moto.
Perfect timing.
Another case for Ernie.
what I do is just have fun. I was born right here in this area called Spillway, across the canal, in the River Memorial Hospital. I'm proud of my community. I'm proud of Indian River County. Glad I was born here. I wouldn't rather be anywhere else. And what I do, like I say, is just fun. I'm just out there. So if you think I did something special, thank you, thank you, thank you. Other than that, I don't know what else to say.
Well, yes, Ernie, you did, and I recall as we were going through the Gifford Water Tower scenario, I remember hearing that shutter speed kicked up a notch because you said, I'm preserving this.
And
And-
still trying, keep you from tearing it down.
And your efforts have actually more than preserved it photographically. I believe we're on the right course. So you have had a tremendous impact I just want to ask how, at the time, let's go back to your early years of how you chose photography. It really wasn't a popular endeavor at the time for an African American, is that correct?
I think so.
So,
I stole my aunt's camera when I was like 13. And she wasn't using it, so I wanted to know how it worked.
well,
And
you
then
borrowed
somebody-
it.
And somebody gave me some printing blocks, and I wanted to know how printing worked. So I put them all together. Told my mom when I was 15 I was gonna work for the Press Journal. I did for 22 years. But I never thought I was gonna do anything significant. I just, like I said, I'm out there just having fun. This thing is just recording history and recording whatever I see. It's just an extension of what's going on up here. And I don't even know what's going on up here all the time. So,
Well,
but I sure thank you, and I appreciate it, and I'm so humble. Never won an award before, but thank you.
Thank you, Ernie.
Ernie, I've known you for a long time, and like me, you grew up here, and your work has always been tremendous. The photographs you've had, no matter whether it was when you worked for the paper or what you do now, is your work with photography has always been amazing. But I am surely convinced of one thing. When I saw you and your family in Publix a week or so ago, you had a jacket on and your camera was behind you, and I'm like, whoa, Ernie, where's his camera? Because I'm convinced if you go missing, we're not going to be worried. But if we find your camera somewhere by itself, there's a problem. But thank you for all you do. Thank you for all you do. It's been great for the community and great for what you do and presenting basically life here in Indian River County. It's always just been fabulous, and I appreciate it. Thank you so very much.
Thank
You
you,
know, and
sir.
I'd like to add to that. One of the things that makes your work special is when you photograph something, even if we've seen it thousands of times, whether it's a 17th Street Bridge or a bumblebee sitting on a flower, the way you capture it, you stop, you stop and you look at it and you see it in a different light, maybe sometimes literally even. And I love that about your work. And for anyone who hasn't seen this work, it's posted on Facebook under your name, but also Indian River Times. So thank you again. And you are very special.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ernie.
Someone else is going to have to take your picture now.
Ernie brought a photographer.
I have no doubt. Only because I'm short and you're tall. Congratulations. Thank you very much. Thank you. All right. Our next proclamation is a proclamation honoring Elise Bruce on her retirement from the Indian River County Sheriff's Office, and that will be presented by Commissioner Lohr.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Lee and the team, come on down.
I was going to say, I know you have an entourage to bring down with you. You even got Kim out of retirement.
I did.
Man, that's impressive.
I got Sandy.
And
Terry,
Sandy?
And Terry.
Oh, my gosh, you got them all.
Come on.
Watch out for Ernie. Wow, Commissioners and friends, it's an honor and a privilege for me to read this proclamation honoring Lee Bruce on a retirement from the Indian River County Sheriff's Office. Whereas Lee Bruce is retiring from the Indian River County Sheriff's Office effective February 29, 2024. And whereas Lee began her journey at Indian River County Sheriff's Office on May 19, 1986, and has served with distinction for over 36 years. Wow. And whereas Lee began her career as a correctional deputy, but spent the majority of her service serving the citizens of Indian River County as a public safety dispatcher. And whereas over her tenure, Lee received many acknowledgments and commendations for her efforts, including life-saving, going the extra mile, honorable service, dispatcher of the year, and exceptional duty. And whereas Elise worked diligently under 5 different sheriffs to protect and serve the citizens of Indian River County and the state of Florida. And whereas Lee's remarkable dedication to her profession has earned her the appreciation of Sheriff Flowers and all of those that she's had the honor of working with. And we see a dozen of them now. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed by the Board of County Commissioners of Indian River County that this board lauds the contributions of Lee Bruce has made to the citizens of Indian River County during her highly successful law enforcement career and wish her a happy and prosperous retirement. Signed this 6th day of February 2024 by all 5 county commissioners. Congratulations. Wow. I'd like to say a few words.
Okay. Thank you, County Commissioners, Robin, Lou, Sheriff, for this honor. I've been an employee of the Sheriff's Office for the last 37 and a half years. Before marriage, before children, before a lot of things. I've always said I love my job, and I still love my job. It's truly one of the hardest jobs anyone will ever do. We're always there, no matter what, always answering the call 24/7. So please remember your dispatchers, take good care of them. They are one of the hardest working employees you have for this county. I've had the opportunity to work side by side with some amazing people, from deputies to dispatchers to my sister and my daughter. And just information, Lou retires next year after 48 years with the agency. I do want to thank the sheriff for allowing me to be the first reserved dispatcher this county will have. So I'm not really going anywhere. I will volunteer and be there when Robin needs me. So again, thank you very much for this recognition. It's an honor.
Hey guys, I just want to say thank you for taking time out of your agenda today. I know you have a very busy schedule, and for making time for our employees. It's important that we recognize our folks, and almost 38 years for Lee. We're going to be back here soon to see you for Lou for 40 plus years. It's absolutely incredible, and it's also a sad day for us that, as she said, she's not really leaving, but it's a sad day for this much experience to be walking out of the Indian River County Sheriff's Office. And so we're certainly going to miss Lee, and want to thank you for everything you've done for everyone at the Indian River County Sheriff's Office. You take care of so many different people, from citizens to deputies, to all the employees who call in and ask. So thank you for all that you've done. Thank you.
I did have a speech prepared, however, everybody has kind of covered the topics that I was going to talk about. There's one thing that was not included in it, is with Lee departing the Sheriff's Department as an employee, we lose our mama bear, because she is truly our mama bear, and she is our party planner, so our parties won't be as good as they used to be. But with all that being said, I will end this with, thank you, Lee, for your almost 38 years of service to Indian River County, and we wish you many years of happiness and retirement.
I mean, yeah, you guys have all the equipment to force it to stay. Yeah. Good to see you.
We got Sandy out here too. Oh my God.
Wow.
Yeah.
Good to see you. It's your picture. You put them where you want them.
All your voices mean so much to me.
I know, right? Fantastic, thank you. Congratulations, dear. I'm glad you're not really. I understand completely.
She's old.
All right, commissioners. The next item should be a presentation on the process for establishing a quiet zone to address train horn noise. And I see our MPO and Brian is coming up. Are you taking the lead? Okay, Eric's got it, all right. Fantastic. There's always a first, so here we are.
Morning, Commissioners. Eric Ferguson, County Traffic Engineer. With me is Brian Freeman with the MPO, and we also have Rory Newton with the Federal Railroad Administration.
Oh, welcome.
So we're going to present a PowerPoint on the process. We could have a quiet zone, and we'll answer your questions and seek some direction.
Okay.
Okay. So a quiet zone is a section of rail line at which train horns are not routinely sounded. But the key word is routinely. Quiet zone's a little bit of a misnomer. You're still gonna hear a train horn. If there's any emergency situation, if the train crew sees a vehicle, a person, an animal, they can sound the horn. If there's construction going on with the railroad, the horn has to be sounded. I'm sure all of us know what a train horn sounds like. The federal government has very detailed regulations on it. I'll hit some of the key points. Horn is typically sounded 15 to 20 seconds at every crossing, and the decibel range is between 96 and 110 decibels. On September 22nd, 2023, Brightline began its service from West Palm Beach to Orlando. With that, there was several changes, notably 32 additional trains a day, and there was the tracks were double tracked. In addition, the crossings were all reconstructed in substantially different configurations. Currently, there's 38 day trains, 15 night trains, for a total of 53 trains. To note on the freight, that includes some of the short trains, that not every freight train is the long ones. And also to note is that Brightline increased the trains from 32 additional trains a day. So that means there's 32 additional horn soundings at every crossing. With the settlement agreement, there were substantial changes to the crossings. I'm going to hit a few key points. Most notable is there were 52 vehicular exit gates added. On your left, there's a diagram of a rail crossing with entrance and exit gates. And this is the treatment at the majority of our crossings. And why this is important is the exit gates, you can't drive around the entrance gate. And sadly, we've had crashes, other communities without exit gates. And a couple other improvements I think are really important that are unique to Indian River County with the settlement agreement is we have second train warning blank out signs. We have one-way pedestrian exit gates. We had new traffic signals constructed. There's several other communities that I know that did not get traffic signals constructed that actually are going back now at their expense and are funding traffic signals. And we also had battery backups added at the traffic signals that are connected to the rail crossings. And those improvements, I don't believe any other community has. Our ordinances currently have a night train ban from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. The ordinance is not enforceable. In 1991, it was preempted by a Federal Railroad Administration emergency order that actually the emergency order actually started in Florida with the FEC, so everything's a circle. And in 2005, the emergency order became a final rule. Our crossings in 2005 were not configured with the appropriate safety measures to qualify for a quiet zone. So if we want to have a quiet zone, there's a couple requirements. At the top of your slide, there's a diagram that's the circles in green would represent a quiet zone. The circles in gray would represent crossings where a train horn would be sounded. So one requirement is the quiet zone has to be a half-mile minimum in length, and every crossing in that half-mile or longer has to be included. You can't skip a crossing. And then you need a quarter-mile distance to the next crossing where you would have a train horn. And for hours of a quiet zone, you have two choices, all day or 10 p.m. to 7 a.m. 6 a.m.? 6 a.m. Thank you, Rory. Now, in the county, who can create a quiet zone? A public authority with responsibility for traffic control or law enforcement can. In our county, the City of Sebastian, City of Vero Beach, FDOT, or Indian River County could be the applicant for the quiet zone. And if we wish to have a quiet zone that spans multiple jurisdictions, that's allowed. We just would have to reach agreements with the other municipalities and FDOT. This is a chart of the crossing ownership in the county. As you can see, the county it's based on roadway ownership. The county has the majority of the crossings, 22 out of 32 total. This is a map of the crossings in the county. The map's a little different than what you're used to. North is to your right. It fit better on the slide. It's to make it more visible. I'm going to note a couple items. The crossing ownership is depicted in colors. Red is the county. FDOT is in orange. City of Vero Beach is purple. And City of Sebastian is a bluish green. Based on the regulations, St. Lucie County to your left, their crossings are far enough away that we do not need to do any coordination with them. On your right, Brevard County's crossings are far enough away that there's no intergovernment coordination required with Brevard County. Another item to note is the City of Sebastian. There's a mix of county and city crossings. Some of the crossings, if we do a continuous segment, are in unincorporated, some are in incorporated. So there would be definitely a need for coordination there. And finally, I'd note that as staff, when we looked at the overall county, there really wasn't an obvious place where there wasn't residential density to have a quiet zone, not have a quiet zone. So staff's recommendation is if we were to do it, it would be a countywide quiet zone. I'm going to briefly go through our typical crossing configurations after the settlement agreement. So this is Oslo Road. This is a listing of what every crossing has. The flashing lights, bells, gates, constant warning devices, powered indicators. This is a photo of 12th Street. This is what's referred to as a 4-quadrant gate system. It has exit gates, so you can't drive around it. This is our most common configuration. 25 of our 32 crossings have this configuration. The second configuration we have is a one-way road. 5 of our crossings have this configuration. So in this configuration, you have the gates go down on the entrance side, block all the vehicular lanes. And being that's a one-way road, there's not a need for exit gates. Final configuration is what we call a hybrid we have 3 gates and a long median. There's 2 crossings, this configuration. On your left, you have a very long median, which makes it difficult for vehicles to go around the gate. And on the right side, there's an exit gate and a short median. So the reason we have exit gates at this location is if the median were to be extended, the left turn lane would be eliminated. So in summary, 25 of our crossings are 4-quadrant gates. We have 5 one-way crossings and 2 hybrid 3-gate median combinations. The 30 of the crossings are considered supplemental safety measures and would automatically qualify for a quiet zone. The 2 other crossings are alternate safety measures, which, although they have similar safety benefits, there's a longer process to have their safety benefit included in the application. So fundamentally, with a quiet zone, what we need to do to demonstrate to FRA is that with the elimination of the train horn, we're not posing a significant increase in risk, and that we've compensated for it. So we've run FRA's quiet zone calculator with FRA's assistance, preliminary analysis, and we've found that our quiet zone risk index for countywide crossing would be less than the risk index with horns. So we would qualify. And what's important is there's no additional construction would be required, no additional improvements at the crossings. The major work would be we'd have to add additional signage for no train horns, or no train horns from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. And there's another wrinkle is the Federal Highway Administration adopted a new traffic control device manual after Brightline completed its construction. So we're going to have to revisit the markings and some of the other signs, but those are not significant costs. This is, go through this briefly, this is the flow chart from FRA's manual. Depending on your situation, there's different reporting requirements, different application requirements. We highlighted in yellow the route we think is the most efficient. I just wanted you to see, even though we have the physical devices in place, it's still a process. I'm briefly going to go through the steps we would have to do. First is to file a notice of intent. That would go to the railroad, FDOT's rail office, and there would be comments. We would respond to comments. Next step is we'd have to, for a countywide option, we would have to execute interlocal agreements with FDOT, City of Sebastian, and City of Vero Beach. We have to obtain updated traffic counts at every crossing. We have to visit all 32 sites and update the grade crossing inventory forms. We would have to rerun the quiet zone risk calculator with the new traffic counts. We'd have to file a notice of establishment. And the signing and pavement markings would have to be updated to current standards and adding no train horn signs. And finally, we'd silence the horns routinely. And then every 2.5 to 3 years, there's reporting requirements. The cycle continues. We have to affirm that our crossings are configured correctly to maintain the quiet zone. This is a preliminary schedule. We think we could, 6 months is realistic. As far as the work breakdown structure, the biggest risk of the schedule would be the interlocal agreements, which staff would not have complete control over the schedule. There are some future fiscal impact. We'd have some additional maintenance of no train horn signs, and every 2.5 to 3 years, we have reporting requirements to FRA. And probably as far as staff time, the longest item would be updating the traffic counts. But we do count some of the crossings already. Other municipalities, the status of their quiet zones, quite varied. The City of Vero Beach and City of Sebastian staff have expressed an interest in participating in a quiet zone. West Palm Beach has already established a quiet zone for their section from West Palm Beach to Orlando, and Martin County's waiting 1 year. So that's our presentation. So we'd welcome to answer questions, and staff is requesting direction whether we should begin the process of establishing a countywide quiet zone. And if you wish to establish a quiet zone, the choice would be all day or 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. 7 a.m., sorry. 6. It's 6. The slide's incorrect. Yeah.
All right, commissioners, questions, comments for staff?
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Lord.
when you showed the one chart, Eric, about the half-mile distance, so if we're within a half mile, it can't be a quiet zone.
No, yeah, you want to,
I'll just reintroduce myself. I'm Rory Newton. I'm with the Federal Railroad Administration. I'm a railroad safety inspector here in Florida. I'm with the Grade Crossing Trespasser and Outreach Division, and one of my duties is assisting local governments with establishing quiet zones. The half-mile requirement is to establish a minimum size of a quiet zone. You can have a one-crossing quiet zone. The captured distance is to ensure that nearby adjacent crossings aren't excluded from a quiet zone, so we're not having one crossing is a quiet zone and the next is not. And it's just this checkerboard pattern of horns and no horns becomes almost impossible to maintain or manage for most railroads and communities. Does that answer your question, sir?
I think so. At the beginning, you said, and I think your first or second slide said, all trains must. Now, has that changed with the preemption?
All my trades must what?
It said all trains must sound their horns.
So the train horn rule, that's the CFR, the Part 222, at the same time, it requires train horn whistling also incorporates the quiet zone. So either they have to whistle for the crossings per the rule, or they observe the quiet zone. And the railroads can't object to quiet zones. So they have to be compliant one way or the other. And then they have the option for whistling for, unplanned contingencies like construction or emergencies.
Right. I also saw where it said all parties must agree, and you mentioned City of Sebastian and Vero. I didn't hear about FDOT.
Yeah,
I
they
think
would
they
be
have- I think
party
they have
to
two
it, I would
crossings,
assume.
right?
And historically, in the 100 quiet zones that are established in Florida, FDOT has participated in numerous of them.
So
Even ones that are
we've
current.
reached out to them, and they would agree as well.
I can't speak for FDOT, but they have
Okay.
frequently.
well, we have not reached out to FDOT yet, but they did participate when I worked at the city of West Palm Beach. They participated for all the crossings in Broward and Palm Beach County. I don't anticipate they would not participate, and they participated for the latest. I don't anticipate they would object.
So what are the statistics of any incidents involving either FEC or Brightline in the existing quiet zones compared to the non-quiet zones?
Well, I don't have stats in front of me, but there are incidents continuously in quiet zones, regardless of the warning devices installed. Another challenge the quiet zones and further south have faced is with the issue of trespassers being struck by trains is there was a loss of awareness of the trains without the train horns whistling for the crossings. Right. And that seemed to have a major impact, particularly in Broward County, was put under the administrator's review for termination of their quiet zone. And they had to take significant steps to protect their quiet zone and enhance safety beyond just crossings.
Right, so I think you're talking about Boca, South Palm Beach?
It was all, Broward County also has a countywide quiet zone. Their quiet zone is, I think, over 70 crossings.
Right, and don't they have fences all
They
the way
have
along?
some, but they don't have as many, we call the supplemental safety measures like the 4-quadrant gates or medians at all their crossings. They have a lot less, but the trains do not exceed 79 miles per hour in their quiet zone. This is the
Right.
significant difference.
Are you aware of some of the fencing in Broward County that's been cut by pedestrians so they can cross the track even in a quiet zone?
I don't really have any personal accounts, but public safety fencing around railroad tracks is always a continuing challenge for railroads and local governments to maintain, that they're almost always constantly being tampered with or defeated in some way. And there are types of fences you can invest in that are more robust, higher security. Of course, the trade-off is more cost.
Right, and who pays for that?
That's up between the public authority and the railroads to decide who's going to own the fence and maintain it. It's the FRA, we do not dictate who's going to do what. Railroads typically, they prefer someone else maintains the fence, and there's a lot of liability with the fences. If pathways are formed, and they become very tenuous sometimes.
Right. I'm aware of those. Who would bear these costs, Eric or Brian, if we did it here for the county? I know the municipalities they would be on the hook for their areas, right? and then the county would be on the hook for the other majority of it.
Yeah, the county would have to bear the cost for our quiet zone. It's a lot, the cost is mostly staff time, it's not a huge cost. I would anticipate in the interlocal agreement, we would want the municipalities to have to maintain their crossings and participate in some of the staff effort of preparing the application package.
And you said they agreed. Has there been any vote by any of those city councils?
You want to answer that?
Good morning, Brian Freeman, MPO Staff Director. I've had conversations with City of Vero Beach and City of Sebastian staff, and also there was some discussion at the MPO's Technical Advisory Committee meeting, which was on January 26th. And so staff for both cities have indicated that there's a interest in both cities to implement a countywide quiet zone. Sebastian also indicated a preference for the nighttime option. The Vero Beach staff haven't really indicated a preference for either all day or nighttime, but they have not taken any action yet at the city council level, but they do anticipate being, on board with the process.
Okay. And FEC's been using those rails for over 100 years, is that right? And they've been using their horns in Indian River County for over 100 years. So, Madam Chair, that's it for me.
All right. Commissioner Fletcher, do you have any questions or comments?
Yes, and the last point, as far as the nighttime horns, nothing has changed.
Can you repeat the
Nothing
question?
has changed as far as the usage of horns, and I'm hearing from some constituents nearby the tracks that, now with this addition, I just want to clarify it, with this addition, that the nighttime horns, they're going through and they have attributed it to Brightline, which is not the case. Those are freight trains that we hear and have been sounding throughout the time in which the trains began running on those tracks. Is that correct?
Because I think
Yeah.
what he means is because Brightline doesn't run at night.
Right.
The
They
last,
do run late and they start early. I think the first Brightline train passes through before 6 a.m. And they do run, their schedule goes past midnight.
There's like about a 5-hour window. Brightline doesn't operate at night. I think the first train out of Orlando is at like 4:30 in the morning. I don't have their schedule in front of me, but there is a block of time where there is no passenger trains operating.
I did have the slide of the train schedule that, I did look at Brightline's schedule to determine night. And yeah, I think the last train leaves Orlando at 10 p.m. or even later. So there are a few nighttime trains.
And just to clarify, the federal government considers nighttime between 6 p.m. and 6 a.m. It's a specific 12-hour block.
Okay. As far as, for Eric, there we have 3 traffic lights that are intended for implementation.
Actually, 4.
4.
There's 21st and Vero Beach also, US 1. It's a half traffic signal, it's southbound, yeah, but you're probably referring to the 3 in 41st, 45th, and 49th, right?
So, and they were intended for January, then February, they're coming soon.
Yes.
Does that affect the safety assessment factor?
No, not for the FRA consideration. When we do the calculation, it's strictly data that applies directly to the crossing, such as vehicle traffic, number of traffic lanes, number of train traffic, accidents. So there's a few specific data points we calculate or consider.
And the train operator, Motorman, has discretion whether to utilize the horn or not?
So the rule's written that they are not permitted to whistle we say the routine sounding, that is, there is a specific cadence, which is the long, short, long whistle patterns, letter Q in Morse code, actually, and there's a whole history of that. But So the rule just prohibits them from doing that. And the rule also states that the engineer has the sole discretion to whistle, and they list some, not all, but most reasons they would do whistle. People trespassing, vehicles ignoring crossing gates, even says animals. And then railroad operating rules also will be observed if they, let's say FEC, I don't know this for certain, but if they say, if there's a signal maintainer along the tracks, the trains will whistle as they pass. And that's an example of an operating rule that they still can observe.
Traveling south of us into a quiet zone, they still utilize the horns. I have heard the horns.
Yes, you will hear
Yes,
horns in a quiet zone.
I
yes.
have personally
Absolutely.
heard the horns in a quiet zone.
Right.
Yeah.
Maybe, perhaps not as frequently.
Like I said, it's just that routine whistle pattern where they whistle, whether there's cars at the crossing or not, is the only thing the quiet zone will eliminate by rule. And like an engineer cannot just blow the horn because they feel like it at a crossing. They need a justification at that point. And we've had instances where engineers decided they were just going to whistle because they don't like quiet zones, but that becomes a regulatory issue, which one of my jobs is to enforce that, where they can't just do that without proper justification.
And not going into the reasons behind the incidents or unfortunate deaths of individuals, whether they are trespassers or they intended on standing in front of a train, or they were just trying to not have to walk a mile down the road to cut across, so they went through. And unfortunately, their timing wasn't as swift as the trains. Those incidents happen a lot more frequently in quiet zones. Is that correct?
I can't say for certain, but they certainly still do happen.
Well, that
I don't have a stat of compared to the whole U.S. There's 200,000 crossings in the United States, and
Well, we have. I mean, I would like some scientific assessment of it as opposed to just what we see on the screen in the evening, because we do see them.
oh, you're going to have incidents in a quiet zone. That's
We had our
without
very
a doubt.
first loss just last week here,
Right.
but they are far, just by the broadcast, they are far more frequent down south. We hear about them.
Absolutely.
They do exist. They happen
I think
in
it's-
quiet zones.
I think it's important to understand that a quiet zone or a whistle ban is not a safety initiative. It is a quality of life issue. The FRA does not view a quiet zone as a safety improvement. It is a degradation of the safety at a grade crossing. Even if you have the supplemental safety measures such as 4-quadrant gates, you're still removing the train horn, which is a safety feature of a crossing. So no matter how you shake it, you're reducing the safety of your crossings in your community by putting a quiet zone in place.
In addition, is there a possibility that the gates, again, I served as a deputy sheriff, detective here in Indian River County for many years, and I can recount many instances where the gates failed. Gates failed. They are mechanical devices. When they have failed, what other mechanism does an individual have to know that the train is coming, other than that bright light that's coming down the roadway at night? I mean, the railway at night. What other factor, if we have a failed gate mechanism, which does occur?
Well, I'm not a signal equipment expert, but the crossings themselves are very robust. There's multiple layers of safety, and particularly with the Brightline is utilizing the positive train control technology. If there is a problem with the crossing, the locomotives are actually talking to the crossings wirelessly and will slow the trains down automatically if there's a failure in the system. Things like power failures, the crossings are designed to be fail-safe. The gates are actually held up by electrical power, so if the power fails, the gates will drop to the closed position, even if there's no power at all. And these things do have battery backup for, I'm told, 8 to 12 hours possibly, depends how much use they get. So even in the event of power failures, they still can operate. If there's anything mechanically wrong, like I said, the gates are designed to drop down and stay down without any input from anybody.
I concur that most times the gate failures they were dropped, they were closed.
Right.
And we had to manually lift them up and await FEC response to correct them.
Right. And then there's additional activation failure is actually a very specific term for the FRA that can result in regulatory action against the railroads. They have to actually self-report activation failures, and there's a criteria what defines an activation failure, and they can be subject to fines for not properly maintaining their equipment.
Thank you. Madam Chair.
Thank you. Commissioner Ehrman?
Yes, ma'am. What is currently, let's go back a little bit. Let's go before Brightline. What were the freight trains? We had just had quiet zones at night, right? Is that correct? Or none at all for freight trains?
None at all.
None at all? So we never have had, okay.
Well, we had a quiet zone, I believe, for a couple years in the late 80s before the emergency. I wasn't in Florida, but based on the historic research, we believe the night train ban was in effect for a couple years before it was preempted by the federal regulations.
Because I remember for years, the county has had many discussions over quiet zones, train horns and stuff like that. So prior to Brightline, it was 24 hours a day. They had to sign their horn at every intersection they went by. So it's been going on for quite a while. That's what I was wondering. The next thing that kind of puzzles me about this is that we spent, prior to my being on the board and others, is that we had a lawsuit, spent $4 million to fight Brightline. We ended up getting $31 million in upgrades. And it's almost like, for safety reasons, for all the stories we've heard and everything's done, I've been on, in my career, numerous train accidents here in Indian River County and seen the best, seen the worst of it. But it's almost like now we want to take it away some of that safety feature that we fought so hard to get. The gates, to me, from what I see out there, are working very well. I think someone told me the other day they did have somebody run one of the gates and they just missed the other crossing arm. A car went through it. So people are still going to do that. They're still going to try. There's still going to be deaths. There's still going to be accidents. But it's almost like we're asking now to take away a safety aspect of having so many more trains on our tracks that we're actually looking to take away a safety component of this, of the train, and with Brightline and the freight trains do that. I'm not necessarily opposed to quiet zones. I don't know if I'm ready for 24-hour-a-day quiet zones, but I haven't really made up my mind on this. That's why I was glad to hear we were making a presentation, so hopefully it'll give us some thought to think about this. But I do think it's a little strange that we asked for so much with more trains on the track, and we got it, which was a win-win for Indian River County, but now we're asking to take away one component of safety. I get it. Nighttime, the trains are probably very irritating. If you live near the track, it can be very irritating because they are very loud. I can remember, I'll go way back when the old fire station was there where the post office is right now, when I was a brand-new fireman, and the freight train would go by there every couple of hours, and the beds would shake in the upstairs of the old fire station, but that was many, many years ago. But the track was still right there and the trains were still running. So I haven't made up my mind on this yet as to what avenue I want to take. I want to hear other commissioners, maybe hear some comments from the public is what we want to do, but I just feel it's kind of an odd situation that we're wanting to take away a component that we fought so hard to get, to have the trains be as safe as possible for Indian River County. We wouldn't make them safe, now they're annoying. So I don't know if it's a win-win or a no-win situation. So that's kind of where I'm at right now.
Yeah.
Commissioner Moss?
Thank you. Yeah, I'm not convinced that the quiet zones would be as safe, and evidently there are no statistics that would compare the two options, quiet zones versus allowing trains to use horns. And as has been pointed out, we have a long history of trains in this county with horns. And actually, I grew up as a kid. We didn't live far from the tracks, so it's like personally, I don't have a problem with it. But that's the issue is safety, and like I said, I'm just not convinced that it will be as safe to have signs that say no train horn, especially at night. I mean, you know, you're relying on people approaching an intersection to be reading signs, and I don't see that happening. I mean, just driving around the county and the increase in the number of just traffic accidents we have had and we've seen, and we've all seen it, you know, and we've all heard about it, the increase in traffic accidents. I don't see relying on people to read a sign that says no train horn, that's meaningful. I don't think it is. But thank you, I appreciate the information, and it's certainly something to consider. Evidently, that's what Martin County is doing. Are you able to say a little bit more about that and what their comments might have been? I saw that it said that they're waiting 1 year. Is that correct?
As far as Martin County publicly stated, is that they're going to wait 1 year before they begin any kind of establishment of a quiet zone. They have not pursued any element of a quiet zone at this time. But like I said, they've gone on record saying they're going to wait 1 year before they decide to do
So
something.
are they waiting then for statistics to become available, comparing quiet zones to
Could be.
safety
Excuse me, I'm sorry.
with the horn?
As for the effort, we did recommend to the communities to wait a little bit, let people adjust to the trains. And especially Florida, we have a unique seasonal population here a little bit in the winter that will come from another part of the country, and all of a sudden there's more trains that weren't here literally last year. And getting through this cycle the first year might be important to helping people become more aware of the additional train traffic. And because trains also going much faster than the freight trains have been historically.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, Bill?
Enforcement. You said something about, if we do enact the quiet zones and you have a new engineer, something like that, who does sound the horns during the quiet time during the quiet times. Who enforces that? What type of complaint do you receive, or what do you do?
So the quiet zone, the public authority has a point of contact. Like Eric, for example, would officially be the point of contact. They might have a staff person delegated out. If a citizen of the county complains to the traffic engineering office, they can literally call me directly. I'm actually the guy that writes the checks. And we would go directly to the railroad and find out what the problem is. If historically, my experience doing this for the last several years, these instances of quiet zone violations have been for accepted reasons, where there's an incident, accident, something was broken, railroad maintenance was ongoing. And so that's not a problem, that we do get the complaints and people don't always know what's going on. And they're investigated, and if we do find the railroad non-compliant, they're subject to fines under the federal regulations.
Commissioner Moore, did you have something else?
Yeah, real quick, and in fact, we did have 2 incidents in the last week where people were trying to drive around the gates that were down. So that's not going to change human nature. At some point, we have to take personal responsibility when we're driving and doing other things. But you did mention that the quiet zone of horns is a degradation of safety. That's what you said.
Removing the horns is a
Right.
degrades
So
the safety.
why, as a community, would we want to degrade the safety of our residents by removing horns that have been going on for years and years and decades?
I personally wouldn't do it if I was a member of this community, but I'm not here to decide what's good for you. I'm just here to help you.
And I
answer questions.
appreciate your help.
So, I mean, I've been around railroads my entire life. I'm a second-generation railroader personally, and I like train horns.
Right.
I would used to be law enforcement. I was a railroad police officer for 9 years. I cleaned up a lot of train accidents at Great
Sure.
Crossings.
I think 3 of us have up here.
So I understand people's concerns. They
Right.
live near train tracks. They are loud. They're very loud. And they want their quality of life.
Right.
And that's hard to argue against, but the safety is, for me, is more important personally.
Right, and we've heard that, and Commissioner Ehrman and I guess the others have gotten, email complaints about the horns. And I would hope that in the next few months that somehow we get acclimated to them. I'm less than a mile from the train tracks. I hear them all the time, but I guess I'm immune to them. So, but thank you for being here, sir.
You're welcome. And there was a comment about the stats. There are lots and lots of stats. The federal government meticulously tracks pretty much all things railroad stats. What the stats wouldn't show is how a quiet zone would affect this community versus if there was or not one. I could show you stats for there was a quiet zone or there is a quiet zone than was before, but it wouldn't really correlate to these every crossing is unique, it seems like. And it's hard to say, oh, okay, over here they had no accidents increases, but they don't run 53 trains a day in that community. They run 5. So we can show you car accident stats per crossing and crossing configurations, but it's if you're in an urban county, suburban county, you're going to have incidents, unfortunately. And another option, it wasn't part of the presentation, is because it's not technically part of quiet zones, the option is grade crossing closure and separation. And currently, the federal government, or the bipartisan infrastructure law, has several grants available for communities like this to get funding from the federal government to build overpasses and close crossings permanently. And that's an 80% funding requirement, or the federal government will pay 80% of that. So if the county wants to pursue something like that, we're also here to help you with that. But that is a competitive grant process.
I was just going to say, I think staff is asking for some direction on whether we want them to continue exploring quiet zones or that process or not. That was kind of what the last slide said.
Correct.
So it's a presentation and we don't necessarily need to take a vote, but I do think that some feedback or consensus to staff on what we want them to do or not do is kind of the request being made, so.
Well, we need a consensus, Madam Chair. I would suggest that that this issue be resolved today, and staff needs no longer to go forward. This is a public safety issue, and as Commissioner Ehrman said, we're taking away, and Commissioner Moss, we're taking away a level of safety. And to me, I couldn't go along with it, even if it went to a vote.
We'll agree, Commissioner, Sheriff. And once again, we're looking at compromising, you said, derogating from the safety element, and again, not placing you in the deciding mode, but you said you would not do it if you were in the capacity of that decision, correct? More or less?
I have unique experience, though. I mean, I've been on the
fair.
receiving end of the bad stuff
But
of grade crossing incidents, so.
I just had one other question, and maybe you can enlighten. You said the federal rail system has a very strict direction on the horns.
You're talking about like the use of the horn?
Usage of horns, the decibels,
Yes.
but when the word direction, no, I understand, I just became aware that there is a type of horn that goes forward, but not
You referred to a wayside horn?
side sound, yes.
Yeah, wayside horns are actually an option. They can be implemented without a quiet zone. They're a alternative to train horns. And in a basic nutshell, a wayside horn is a device that's physically mounted at the crossing. We're talking actual like speaker system that will play a attention-getting tone, as opposed to hearing a train horn at the crossing in lieu of the train horn. It does the same whistle pattern. It also does the same decibel level. But instead of having a train horn mounted on a locomotive moving through your community, the noise is local to the crossing. So if you basically getting a train horn blasted in your face if you're staying at a grade crossing, and one of the big differences, the tone is not as pleasant. Train horns are actually music notes. I don't know if anyone knew that, but the wayside horn systems are the ones I have seen in use are grating, I think that's the word I would use to listen to.
Rating?
It's to get your attention. They're almost like an alarm, more of a train than a horn. And the way they're designed, they keep doing the whistle cadence until the train occupies the crossing. They don't have any kind of a compensation for the train speed. So if the train is going 50 and it slows down, the things that keep honking and bonking at you. So they can actually make more noise. And also those devices are maintained as highway devices. They're not part of the grade crossing. So the public authority of that road has to maintain all that equipment, as opposed to grade crossing equipment is maintained by railroads. There is an interconnection between the railroad and that device, but the railroad just sends you a signal and you maintain your stuff yourself.
In your opinion, would that be a benefit to the folks that are looking at the quality of life as opposed to life safety? Would there be a benefit in exploring it, appealing, moving to?
Well, I wouldn't tell you not to explore something or tell you how to manage your crossings. The wayside horn is just an option, and they're not very popular. I can say I've personally come across about a half dozen in my career with the railroads and the federal government and prior to actual railroad employment. They're just not a big demand for them, and like I said, they're kind of an odd trade-off. You don't lose the train horn noise. You just don't have it cascading through the quarter-mile approach to the crossing. It's now being blasted directly at you at the crossing. I mean, they're literally just like giant outdoor speakers mounted on a pole.
Sounds like there's a lot of unknowns and the cost factor and
It doesn't really
the
reduce any
willingness
noise.
for.
Yeah, you're basically paying for the train horn instead of the
Yeah.
railroad paying for its own horn, in a sense. So, like I said, it's just an option. And you can use wayside horns in a quiet zone or independent of a quiet zone. So they're just like one crossing, it's really like, hey, you want to minimize the noise just to the crossing and not have the trains passing through a neighborhood whistling. That's where they come into play. We see them.
Benefit of life, the benefit of.
I mean, that's a subjective answer. I couldn't really give you a good answer.
No.
I don't think they really help.
Thank you. Then I do concur that I'm not looking forward to compromising the element of life safety in Indian River County at this juncture. That's not to say that it's over, but today I think staff has far more other things to do. We still need those traffic lights. It's still, to me, an imperiled situation.
Yeah, we're constantly reminding Brightline they need to get them in.
So it doesn't sound like there's support to move forward with quiet zones at this time. Would that preclude the city of Sebastian or Vero Beach from moving forward with them independently if they decided they wanted to do that?
Though they can establish independently.
They could establish them within
The
their
only-
boundaries.
The only issue is that minimum distance.
Okay.
If their quiet zone would capture a crossing that they don't have control over and they can't get an agreement, that could preclude them. That's the only circumstance, like it was a county
And
road and
then-
a city road.
And then, per the settlement agreement, all the upgrades to those crossings were done, so based on your presentation, we wouldn't have to do any upgrades to crossings to do a quiet zone. So if somebody wanted to bring this back in the future, or if situations changed or whatnot, that is still an option.
Correct, yeah. Going back to the cities establishing quiet zones, with the county crossings and their municipal boundaries, the cities by statute have some traffic control authority on county roads. So they could, even if the county were to object, they could install the signs themselves in their boundaries.
Okay. All right, yes.
Where are the two hybrid crossings?
16th, 17th Street and 53rd. Yep, 53rd Street.
So those would take longer for application and everything else.
Those are the ASM crossings.
So remember, into the technical establishment of quiet zone, there are supplemental safety measures which are used to calculate the risk reduction at a crossing, such as a four-quadrant gate. I believe it's the federal government considers an 82% reduction in risk. I'm not quite sure off the top of my head if that's the right number. If there's only a set few SSMs, four-quadrant gates, mediums with certain criterias are another one. A one-way street is considered a safety measure. If you have something like a median and we call a three-quadrant gate, by itself, we would not give any credit for that. And a community can apply for, we call an alternative safety measure, in which now you're making an application to the FRA for a quiet zone as opposed to self-establishing, which is what the current plan is. And that would require us to do an analysis of the crossing. But at this point, with the amount of crossings you have, like Four Quadrant Gates area, you're already well below the threshold. Even if we had a large error margin in our data input, it wouldn't be a factor. They do have a safety impact, but as far as our calculator is concerned, we wouldn't consider that.
All right. Well, I think that provides you the direction
Yes.
that you need. Okay. Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you for being here. All right, and with that, commissioners, we're going to take a 5-minute recess.
But this group,
All right, I'm gonna go ahead and call the meeting back to order. Commissioners, we don't typically take public input on presentation items, but I do understand there was one gentleman that did want to say something, so sir, if you'd like to come up.
Thank you very much for taking my time for this. The question I have, and I would like to address, I really don't understand how you do not want a quiet zone for anybody who's living anywhere near the tracks. To my opinion, I've been here for 5 years now, and this is the worst year I have ever understood. And actually, it's to the point right now is, it's actually my welfare, I honestly feel, at sleeping at night, for a horn to go off at 2 o'clock in the morning, and that's all you're hearing is a horn constantly. I don't see how that's safety for anybody. I think if you really look into it, and there's a reason why, like you're saying that, if I'm correct now, West Palm has already passed the quiet zone on this. There's got to be a reason why they basically went with that. And I think you guys should really look, and excuse me, women, should really look at a quality of life with people here. And I don't think you really are taking that into effect. At least, it seems to me right now, the little feedback I got from here, that none of you want to have this whatsoever, which I am more than shocked that none of you people want to have any sort of quality of life here in Vero Beach. I'm very surprised at this. And I would hope you would at least consider at least the nighttime ban on a quiet zone. And that's basically all I have to say. Thank you very much for your time, and I really hope that you guys look into this again and do something with it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Have a good day now.
Thank you. All right, with that, Commissioners, our next item is approval of the minutes. We have the minutes from the regular meeting of December 5th and December 12th.
Madam Chair, move approval for both.
All right, I'll second that. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. And there is a few informational items. Congratulations to the clerk's office on their annual Certificate of Excellence for their financial reports. With that, we'll move on to the consent agenda. Commissioners, anybody wishing to pull anything from consent? Anybody from the public wishing to pull anything from consent? Seeing none, Commissioners?
Motion approved.
All right, I have a motion by Commissioner Ehrman with a second by Commissioner Lohr. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. And with that, we will move on to Commissioner Ehrman's item 14C1. Commissioner Ehrman?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. This is a project that was brought to me by the Sunshine Rotary Club. And I didn't know this, but it was also brought to Commissioner Moss before, but somehow it got lost in the shuffle with all the things we have going on. But that's here and there now. But it's a project called Ground Zero, and it's similar to what you see the Coastal Connections folks and all that stuff do with the garbage things, where they put up the poles and the signs and what the why and therefore and whatnots of how we're doing the garbage collection. This is a life-saving measure called Ground Zero, and what they do is they put up a post with a sign on it at different locations throughout county beaches, and it has a life ring on it, an inner tube on it. Say if it's the lifeguard's busy or it's unguarded at the time for some reason, or whatever the case may be, or even on any part that maybe he's not guarded, these rings will be there for somebody that's caught in a riptide or something else happens where somebody out there on the beach can also assist by throwing a life ring. But I do have some members here from the Sunshine Rotary Club, Justin Lefebvre, and okay, and I'm going to let them talk about it. This is their project, and I support it. I think it's a great thing that we should move on. Welcome.
Well, thank you, folks. We appreciate you having us here. So this program was born out of a Rotarian in Cocoa Beach. He is also a retired lifeguard. A friend of his who was also a lifeguard was walking the beach one evening with his wife in Cocoa Beach, and they noticed someone drowning. And so what he did was he jumped, he first looked around. The report from his wife says he looked around for a flotation device. When you're a lifeguard, you never go into the water to save somebody without something to float yourself and that person. So he looked around for a cooler, piece of debris that might be sitting on the beach. Nothing was there. Jumped in to save this person's life, and he ended up drowning. So we also have a member of our club, Kyle Castle, who just last year witnessed a drowning in Vero Beach. He jumped into the water and saved the person, and thankfully he was okay. Everybody turned out okay in that situation. So what this is a pole that we would provide, we would maintain and take care of. We just need permission to install these poles. Not only at our public beaches, we're gonna try to put them at the private beaches. We'd like to cover the entire Indian River County. We'd also like to do, say, like the public boat ramps. There's the canoe launch on 512. We'd like to put them there. Anywhere there's a body of water where there's a possibility of someone drowning, it's a win-win. We're just providing a way for somebody to save a life and have a flotation device there available as well.
When I was in Ireland this
They maintain
September,
and they replace them if the ring is used or lost or stolen or deteriorated, y'all replace them? maintain them?
Absolutely. So we will do all the maintenance and upkeep. We'll check them on a weekly basis. And sometimes in high season, we'll be checking them on a daily basis to make sure those things are available. Right now, there is no GPS. There's a tamper ring, which is a small device. When you pull it off, it's not easy to pull it off. Obviously, you'd have to be in a life-saving situation to rip the buoy off of the pole. It happens. They get tampered with. We would be the ones checking them out. So our permission is not only to install them, but then to maintain them at our cost. And so what we do is we find sponsors to sponsor these poles. So there's a small sign on it or a plaque that says somebody, it might be a family member of someone who drowned, that sponsors this thing. So we incur all the cost of maintaining and sponsoring these, or maintaining and installing. There's really not much of a loss. We just don't want to go install them without permission.
Sure. Mike, what's the process for this to happen? That's what we
Well, we
want
were
to
just
do.
asked to collaborate with our Ocean Rescue Division, our Parks and Rec Division for, appropriate placement and just come to an understanding of where they're going to go. And I want to thank both Commissioner Moss and Commissioner Ehrman for bringing this to our attention a few months ago. And with the board's direction, we'll explore that. And if there's any reason why it can't proceed or has an issue that you all need to resolve for us, we'll bring it back. But I see it as a win-win, as you say. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Thank you. This is a fantastic idea.
Awesome. We thought so when it was presented to our club, and we thought, why aren't we doing this, and why isn't there one at every body of water? So we look forward to doing it.
I want to ask you one other question.
Sure.
What does it cost to sponsor a location?
$500 annually. So one pole is $500 annually. There's not really a set cost. In Cocoa Beach, they have these on the beaches spread out all over the place now. They've figured that their regular cost of maintenance is about $500 to replace the ring. Typically on an annual, the sun eats it up, and so you have to make sure it's there, and just to go out and maintain them, it's about $500 per ring.
I believe these are in Brevard beaches. All the Brevard beaches have it, Brevard County?
I can't speak for all of Brevard County. The program started in Cocoa Beach, so obviously it's there. But as far as getting it approved, there are some places that have hesitated to approve this. One for the maintenance of them. What if the ring is there and or what if the ring is missing from the pole? We understand the issues that can also arise from not maintaining the life-saving devices when they're out. But the reality is, if somebody grabs the pole or grabs the life-saving device, the life ring, and runs off with it, and something happens that day, obviously we missed the opportunity to provide a ring. If we go there 2 days later and put a new ring on it, the opportunity still exists for someone to save a life. So is there a problem with you know, maybe not having it available if the pole exists, yes, but 90% of the time or more, the ring's gonna be there to save somebody's life.
I think it's a good program. It's worthwhile doing, and I don't know if y'all had a time to watch the little video and stuff that explained it, but it's pretty much self-explained it, but Justin's done a great job of covering everything. So with that, Madam Chairman, unless, I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second it.
All right, there's a motion by Commissioner Ehrman with a second by Commissioner Moss. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Thank
Just
you.
get with Mike
I do
and-
have a representative from our Ocean Rescue Division here. Jonathan's off today, but
Okay.
Chris, we can just introduce you right now if you'd like.
Absolutely.
Perfect. Thank you, guys. Have a great day. All right, with that, we will move on to public hearings. Dear Lord. Our first public hearing is 10A1, a county-initiated request to amend the 5-year capital improvement program and the capital improvement element of the comprehensive plan for the period of fiscal year 23-24 through 27-28. Welcome, Mr. Balter.
Good morning, Commissioners. Chris Balter, Chief of Long Range Planning. Yep. All right, today before you, we have a county-initiated request to amend the capital improvements element, the CIE of the comprehensive plan. The purpose of the comprehensive plan text amendment is to recognize the changes in the existing and future public facility needs and changes in funding. It's to comply with the yearly CIE update requirement of state law and county comprehensive plan policy. The CIE adoption process follows a little bit different of an adoption process than the state standard process. It requires only one public hearing and no Planning and Zoning Commission review, and it doesn't have to go before the state agency. Highlighted changes: the updated existing revenue information and the updated revenue projections, the updated Appendix A, Indian River County 5-year schedule of capital improvements, the CIP, and the updated and revised all tables, figures, and corresponding texts. So this year's CIP is for 2023-24 to 2027-28. The total 5-year CIP expenditures increased only by 3%, which is pretty incredible, especially with the rising cost of inflation and all the project costs. So that's really good that we kept it down. The new total is $489,010,568. The projected revenues will match the projected expenses. The level of service standards will be maintained. And as is always in all of the CIEs in the past, the transportation is the largest category of total expenditures, which is 40.7%. Here's a list of the actual 5-year capital improvements plan. It breaks down all of the expenditures for each category. And then the total at the end. So a big thing was to use the 1-cent local option sales tax for 20% of the proceeds for the first 5 years of extending the 1-cent local option sales tax to lagoon-related projects. So the proposed 5-year capital improvement plan allocates more than 20% of project 1-cent local option sales tax revenue to lagoon-related projects during 2023-24 to 2027-28. So here's a list of some of the projects. I didn't list all of them, but here are the most notable ones: the North Sebastian Highlands and West Wabasso Sewer, Flavor and Shores Septic to Sewer, North Indian River County Drive Stormwater Treatment Improvements, Indian River Lagoon Greenway Boardwalk and Wetland Restoration and Replanning, Lost Tree Island Restoration and Replanning, Captain Forster's Renovation and Improvements, Prange Island Improvements, and the North Relief Canal Treatment System and Stormwater Marsh Projects and Lagoon Treatment System. The summary: increased forecasted revenue, the project time frames extended and project costs modified, the level of service standards are maintained, 20% of the 1-cent local option sales tax in years 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 allocated to lagoon-related projects. The CIE is consistent with the comprehensive plan, and the CIE is financially feasible. Recommendation: Board of County Commissioners approves the updated to the 5-year capital improvements program for the period of FY 2023-24 to 2027-28, and supporting data analysis of the capital improvements element, CIE, of the comprehensive plan by adopting the proposed ordinance. That being said, I'd be happy to answer any questions you guys may have.
All right, commissioners, are there any questions of staff at this time on the CIP?
No, I would just agree that shows a pretty strong, financial stance by the county, and you're right, that 3% is probably a pretty good deal to come through over this past year or so with everything. No, I'm very pleased with it.
All right, well, if there's no questions of staff, we will open the public hearing. Anybody from the public wishing to speak on this item, please come to the podium and state your name and address for the record. And seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. It looks like we're going to have a lot of projects moving forward the next couple years. There is quite a few things that I know we've been anxiously awaiting, so I'm happy to see that, as the 5 years moves on, it gets closer and closer to happening. So that's a secret in government. But with that, commissioners, what is your pleasure?
Motion to approve staff recommendation.
I have a motion by Commissioner Flesher with a second by Commissioner Ehrman. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Are you doing the next one too?
I will be sitting up here for the next one.
All right. Next public hearing is consideration of an ordinance of Indian River County, Florida, amending the zoning ordinance and the accompanying zoning map for plus 65.13 acres from A1 Agricultural 1 District to RM6 Multifamily Residential District. This is a quasi judicial hearing, so let me get out my little cheat sheet. All right, commissioners, this is a quasi judicial hearing, so we need to go through our questions. Have any of you guys, I would ask you guys to disclose any ex parte communications, site visits, or independent investigations. Commissioner Lohr.
Have not.
Commissioner Flesher.
None that I'm aware of.
None that I'm aware of? None.
I have it's not really ex parte in the true sense of the term, but I have the draft minutes of the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting for January 11th having to do with this matter, and also a copy of the traffic study by Mills, Short, and Associates, which was received by the Indian River County Building Department on November 1st of 2023, because I think it's important to know what planning and zoning, what questions might have come up during that period of time that it was reviewed, and also to take a look at the traffic study. So I have both of those things, which I obtained yesterday, because I asked my planning and zoning appointee if he had any comments on this, and he did not have any comments.
All right. Bill, will she need to provide that to the clerk?
Yes, it's
Okay.
public, yeah.
All right. Next, please confirm that you have an open mind and are able to base your decision on the evidence presented and applicable, I cannot speak today, applicable law. Commissioner Moss.
Can and will.
Can and will.
I can and will.
Can and will.
All right. At this time, we'll open the public hearing and ask the clerk to swear in all witnesses collectively. Anybody speaking on this item in any way, shape, or form, please stand and be sworn in.
Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth and nothing but the truth?
Fantastic. With that, we will start off by a presentation by county staff. Welcome.
Good morning, Board. For the record, I'm Cindy Thurman, Senior Planner, Long Range Planning. For your consideration is a rezoning request for Riverfront Groves Incorporated from A1 to RM6. The overall property is approximately 116 acres. However, almost 51 acres lies outside of the county's urban service boundary. Only the area within the urban service boundary is requested to be rezoned, which is about 65 acres. Sorry. The land uses in this area include commercial, manufacturing, light industrial, agricultural, and the Verona Trace residential subdivision, currently developed at 4.5 units per acre. The RM6 zoning district is established to the southeast end of the subject property. Sorry, here's the zoning map. The RM6 zoning district is established to the south and east of the subject property here in the brown. You can see here that the property, the subject property in yellow, I don't have a mouse, is bifurcated or split in half by the urban service boundary. We're only here to consider the rezoning of the area in blue. The area in green on the other side of the urban service boundary is not subject to this request. Here we have the future land use map. You can see that this area that is under the rezoning is consistently designated as M1. M1 is our medium density residential. A look at the area shows that this is consistently designated on this area on the east side of I-95. A1 agricultural district. This is the existing zoning. It's designated for agricultural, aquifer recharge area, and conservation uses intended to provide for residential uses at a very low density. Requires non-urban location, primarily devoted to agricultural activities. Down here is a snapshot of the two side by side, the A1 and the RM6. You can see that there are differences in the zoning classification side by side. Proposed zoning, RM6, is a multifamily district designated for medium density multifamily residential development. Ensures adequate public facilities to meet the needs of residents, provides a varied and diverse housing supply. As we mentioned before, when we saw the future land use map, this area is designated as N1, future land use area. This is intended to provide for development of residential uses with medium density, densities up to 8 units per acre. The existing N1 future land use designation is consistent with the RM6 requested zoning district, so there is no future land use designation change requested as part of this request. I will point out that although the N1 future land use designation would allow up to 8 units per acre, the RM6 requested zoning will only allow 6. The existing A1 zoning district is at a density of 1 unit per 5 acres, so there is a significant difference there. Every rezoning requires us to analyze everything against the review criteria in Chapter 902.12, subsection 3, items A through K. So is it in conflict with any applicable portion of the land development regulations? Because of this property's location next to the urban service boundary, the proximity does provide for buffers in the land development regulations. Consistent with the elements of the comprehensive plan, future land use element objective policies 1.13 and policy 1.43, it meets the criteria of that. This request is consistent with the existing proposed land use, since, as I mentioned, they're not requesting or need a change in the land use. Is it in compliance with the adopted county thoroughfare plan? There is main access from this site from 98th Avenue, and it does have access from 102nd Avenue, 102nd Street. Generate traffic which to decrease level of service as adopted. All roadway segments within the area levels of influence would operate at an acceptable level of service under the proposed RM6 zoning. And we'll get back to this in a minute, but we did receive a traffic study, which is part of the record. F, subject to change conditions which exist that warrants an amendment. The RM6 zoning district is established in the area. The current A1 zoning designation limits the applicant to 1 unit per 5 acres, while the future land use designation on the property allows up to 8 units per acre. So there has been a significant change as there has been land use decisions made. Item G, would decrease levels of service established for sanitary sewer, potable water, solid waste, drainage, and recreation. The applicant they move forward with development will have to provide the connection and customary fees. And again, they are in with that in the urban service boundary area. However, I want you to see that as we look at every rezoning, Section 910.07 of the Land Development Regulations require that everything that comes in for a rezoning request require conditional concurrency review that requires us to review everything based on the most intense use. So you can see here that the most intense use under the existing zoning would be 13 single-family units across the 65 acres because it's 1 unit for every 5 acres. As the most intense under proposed, we would be looking at 360 multifamily units as it is 1 unit per, as it was up to 1 unit, 6 units per acre. Sorry, I'm a little tongue-tied this morning, I apologize.
I can appreciate that. I've been tongue-tied all day.
A lot to go through. Okay, so as we move on, would this request result in a significant adverse impact on natural environment? No, adverse impacts on the site are not anticipated. This was an agricultural site in the past. Does it result in an orderly logical development pattern? As I stated, the land use is established. RM6 is already established in the area. We do believe this is result in a logical surrounding land use, an orderly development pattern. Is it in conflict with the public interest? Is it in harmony? It is in harmony with and would result with the intent of the land development regulations. And are there any other matters that may be deemed inappropriate in reviewing consideration of proposed amendments such as police, protective, fire? Again, all of those things are in line as it is within the urban service boundary. I just wanted to also mention here, there have been concerns about transportation improvements. This is an area that has been subject to several rezonings and several developments and many, many questions. So staff is very highly aware. We are very much working as a team. Transportation improvements are ongoing, and as developments are constructed, usually in phases, we bring these scheduled improvements online and we make sure that they fit together like puzzle pieces. Venetian Groves has scheduled improvements, and they are yet to be constructed. These do include these that I've mentioned here: northbound right turn lane on 98 at State Road 60, additional westbound left turn lane at 60 at 98th, additional southbound receiving lane on 98th Avenue, and that, of course, is at the main corridor to the north. But you can see here on the map, these are also, here's the subject property I've labeled, but we have Verona Trace, they're developed at 4.5 units per acre, Venetian Groves with these promised traffic improvements, but we also have Retreat at Citrus Whip, and correct me if I'm wrong, Chris, we do not have a number of units yet. Not yet. So we do have in mind, we do know that there are definitely going to be developer motivated and traffic, improvements
In the future.
in that area. So I'll move to the next one. So in conclusion, requested RM6 zoning district, we do find it compatible with the surrounding area, consistent with the goals, objectives, and policies of the county's adopted comprehensive plan. It's consistent with the county's land development regulations. It is deemed suitable for RM6 zoning to further meet the needs of the residents with the diverse and varied housing supply in the area. Staff can support this request. Planning and zoning recommended unanimous approval at their January 11th, 2024 meeting, and staff and the planning and zoning recommend that the Board of County Commissioners approve this request to rezone the subject property from A1 to RM6. And if you have any further questions, we're available.
Sure. I have, it's not necessarily specific to this project, but just like a conceptual question. If you have a future land use designation and you're moving, you're asking for a rezoning to become compatible with your future land use designation, what are, I guess maybe speak to what the point of having a future land use designation is on a higher level, like not specific to this project.
I would say that your future land use designation is what your ultimate picture is of how you want your your county to grow. It is not necessarily an ultimate maximum, you know, it's not like you want to say this is, you know, this is our max out, our ultimate idea. It is a painted picture of what you might like to see there, but it isn't maybe an ultimate density, if that's where you're going.
Yeah, so years ago, in some kind of planning, visioning process, the county and staff came up with a future land use map, which kind of puts in certain areas the growth and where people would like to see it around, like the interstate, you have commercial, industrial. As you go away, you have maybe multifamily into single-family residential and that kind of stuff. So it gives you an idea of what would and would not be acceptable in the future.
Yes, and like, for instance, with the M1 and the M2, the medium density future land use levels, it speaks about those being, you know, medium density residential, close to areas for shopping and transportation, schools, you know, private, you know, service areas for, you know, residential for people to have services.
And then within each future land use designation, there's multiple zoning categories that might fall into that designation. And when you move from, like in this case, ag to something that's more compatible with the future land use designation, you can kind of choose within that M1. Like in this case, they are asking for RM6, but M1 also included up to 8 units.
Correct.
So you have some room within that depending on what the project is, correct? I just think it's important that we understand that this is not an area that was not ever anticipated to be developed, and that there is a future land use designation. And we have seen that starting to be taken advantage of with the other projects in the surrounding area that you called out. I also think it's important, and I appreciate you saying this, that all of these things happen in phases, and each development is not in its own black hole siloed void. There are requirements that each development has to do as far as service delivery and infrastructure, and as they are phased in, you might not see it in the first one, but by the time you get to the second and the third one, you start seeing that base being built out. So some of the impacts that were anticipated, which I'm assuming is the whole reason you go through a future land use map process, can be taken into account as these things happen. Right? I mean, okay.
Yeah, and I'll just add, that's a very good point here in that we consider the A1 zoning district in this area like a placeholder zoning. When that future land use map was established, we knew by State Road 60 and 95, someday there would be a demand for residential development. However, at the time, we had active ag. So at some point, that ag is no longer active, and we knew this was happening, so this is falling in line with what we knew years ago.
I just think sometimes when we see a lot of development happening, especially from ag to something like this, you 13 units to like 390 units, that seems very shocking, but there's steps in the process and there's planning that has happened ahead of time, and all these different documents, whether it's the current zoning, future land use, LDRs, I mean, they all work together to make sure that it happens the way it's not hodgepodge, I guess is my point. So I appreciate that, and I just wanted some clarification, so thank you. Commissioners, questions of staff? Yes, Commissioner Moss.
I have a question, and this is on the backup material that was supplied, and this is under item G on page 5. It says, if approved, rezoning does not guarantee any vested rights to receive water and wastewater treatment service. Could you elaborate on that, please?
Are you saying in
I can read it again. If approved, rezoning does not guarantee any vested rights to receive water and wastewater treatment service. And that's on page 5.
On page 5 of which document?
I'm sorry, what?
Which document?
The materials
Staff
that we
report?
have, that were uploaded to the website.
Thank you.
No, it's the staff report that's
Everybody
attached.
has it.
He's just pulling it up, give him a
I
second.
just needed to know which document. That way
Yes.
I had it. I have it right now. So The vested rights for utilities, so until they actually pay for a utility connection, which would be a service agreement between us, then they will actually receive the rights to have water and sewer availability.
So do we know at this point what amount of water would be required? We would be the provider then. So it would be county water. And do we know that would be able to supply this number of households?
So there is not a level of service issue at this area. When the project specifically comes in, usually it's much less than what's actually proposed by the time all the roads and infrastructure goes in. So 390 is what it's maximally proposed for, but generally it's going to be less than that. So that's why during the process of actually site plan and goes through the either subdivision approval or whether it goes, there's many avenues it can go through. But during that process, that's when we actually do our concurrency review and level of service analysis. Like I said before, there's no issue with level of service out there currently. There may have to be some extensions of some existing lines that are up by State Road 60, but that's generally done with every type of development the developer pays to extend those services.
And what would be the case with sewer? Is that a similar situation, that the lines would be installed? Would that be part of the agreement?
Correct.
With the developer, most likely? Okay. And the other question I had was from the traffic study. And that has, presumably you've seen it, and that was done by McKenzie Engineering and Planning. And evidently, 5 different routes were studied, and the only one that would be a problem, and this is long-term, this is on page 10, and it's under long-term for 2045. I was just curious, and it says, it's one sentence, so I'll read it. It says, based on the analysis, State Road 60 from 98th Avenue to I-95 is projected to exceed the generalized service volumes in the background for 2045 and total traffic 2045 conditions, so that's 20 years from now. Do we have, and I know you're following it right now because there are other developments nearby, but what I'm asking is, do we have a mechanism when we know something like this or when it's expected or predicted by this engineering firm that there will be an issue, 20 years out? Do we have a mechanism for following it? Or do we check it at certain intervals? If you can tell me,
Sure.
what we do, or how
So
we handle that.
we have a concurrency review process that goes through. So every time a rezoning's done, doesn't mean that those trips are vested yet. So until the actual project is approved, that's when those trips are vested. Then when they're built, depending on because traffic is ever changing, and there's additional trips that are on the roadway, not just from the new neighborhoods, but from surrounding areas as well. And there's also capital improvement projects that are brought on and turned online as well, whether it be widening or, change in timing on lights. It changes the traffic patterns and traffic availability in the area. So in that process, every item that gets vested on those roads gets looked at. So once it's vested, it's accounted for. And then every time a new neighborhood comes in, there will be another traffic study that's done after this. So let's say this project moves forward and goes to site planning. There'll be another traffic study or an update to this traffic study for any of the changes that has happened around the area, because as certain projects turn online, they get accounted for those trips. So there may be, at that time when this project actually comes online, there may be additional improvements that are needed, or additional turn lanes, or there may be a signal warrant analysis that comes up during that process. So that's how each one is tracked. There's a traffic study is just a snapshot in time, and then we go and look at that snapshot periodically through every single project turning online, as well as they're getting relative data from the county on traffic counts and any improvements that we've done.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Other questions of staff?
I'll just note that, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, and then.
I'll just note that we're reaching the edge of the USO, and we have obviously commissioned a study on the USO, so I think this is an example that study will show it as well.
Commissioner Ehrman.
Thank you, Madam Chairman.
good conversation, what you talked about, the future land use map. I think that was perfect and good question by that. And they kind of both answered what my comments are going to be, is that with the fact of this proposal and the other ones that have already been approved on the one map that you showed, I too am concerned about the impact of traffic, especially on 98th Avenue, because that's the much better road to access versus 102nd out there. So I just want to make sure that we, as the county, are making sure that it can support the future growth around the Verona Trace area, because I know it's busy already now. And we may want to look at other, is Avenue the right word to say, I guess? I know you can't cross 95 except at Oslo, but to get back to 60, to go to Oslo, I think we really need to take a hard look at our traffic out there, which you described very well, Chris. But that's my only concern is 10 years from now, when these are done, is 98th Avenue backed up, especially trying to get on 60 in that area. So that would be my only concern with this.
Okay, duly noted. Go back to my cheat sheet. All right, so if there's no other questions for staff at this time, we will now have a presentation by the applicant. Welcome.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the commission. My name is Pete Sweeney with the firm of Block and Scarpa on behalf of the applicant. First of all, let me compliment staff. They've done an excellent job. Andy and Chris, Cindy, everybody, very, very good job. And I just wanted to reiterate two things, as was brought up by the chair. Indian River County has a very sophisticated planning process, and that should be noted. And why I say that is you've got at least 3 levels of scrutiny that come before either this commission or staff or both, starting with the future land use map. And that's part of your comprehensive plan. And in the late 70s, early 80s, when the Growth Management Act was created in Florida to give some growth orientation throughout the state of Florida, virtually everybody had to create a comprehensive plan. And so that's your large, starting, broad brush. And I analogize this at the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting, Commissioner Moss, to sort of your brands of cars, right? You would have a Ford or you might have a Toyota. And then within that, so that's your future land use. And that's why you have agricultural, you have commercial or light industrial. And then within that, you have zoning. So you have makes and models, right? And that's why you have, again, within the M1 future land use, you do have A1 as a zoning, but you also have RM6. And those are completely accepted as compatible uses within that. I should also say, everything gets a zoning at the outset. So zoning is not always been in the history of Florida. And when the Growth Management Act was essentially forced on us by the state roughly 50, 60 years ago, you had to give a zoning and a future land use to every parcel within the county. And certainly, historically, it made sense that western part of the county, particularly west of 95, would have agricultural. That just makes sense. But the fact is, it's no longer a working agricultural facility. And it's almost out of compliance with that zoning, because then within zonings, and it goes back to the question that the vice chair asked about when you come in for site plan, or Commissioner Moss about traffic, it then gets even more specific. And in this case, we're talking about potentially residential development, multifamily development. That's when we'd be coming in and applying for what we actually want to build, the configuration, the utilities, the internal access, ingress and egress, provision for fire safety, all of that. But you start at a very wide funnel and you move your way down. But I certainly want to remind and appreciate the fact that my client owns roughly 116, 117 acres, but we've only come in recognizing that we're bifurcated by the urban services boundary. And that's really important from our perspective, as well as I believe the county's. We're working in conjunction with the rules that you've established. You have placed the urban services boundary where it is, literally in the middle of our property. And if you look down below us at Verona Trace, which is built out, similarly situated. The idea being that you, as the county, over 40 years ago, set that policy in place. And we're now fulfilling that. We're infilling to where utilities have been designated to be provided. Certainly it is a cost on behalf of any development to connect to those. But the idea is that's what you have told any developer, any landowner, if you're inside there, that's where we want you to build, because that's where we've designated for those available resources. And to the point again about the traffic studies, we appreciate the requirements, but we have to come in on a conceptual level. And I appreciate staff reiterating pragmatically and appropriately that although that has to be the highest level we have to demonstrate in our conceptual traffic report, our TIA, the pragmatic approach is that most things fall below that for many reasons. You have stormwater infrastructure that you have to meet. We have roads and sidewalks. We have green space. So this is not the Empire State Building being built west of 95 with 0 lot line and no availability. You are typically going to have less density than that. But this process, as you've outlined, is what we've followed, and respectfully, we hope and believe it makes a lot of sense to infill within the urban services boundary this particular project. So if you have any questions, I have our engineer of record, our traffic consultant here with me, as well as our owner representatives, but we respectfully ask for support on this project. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioners, questions of the applicant?
Thank you.
All right, thank you. With that, we will take any input from the public. Anybody from the public wishing to speak on this item, please come to the podium and state your name and address for the record. Welcome, Mr. Paladin.
Good morning, Chairman and Commissioners and ladies and gentlemen. I'm Joseph Paladin. I'm president of Black Swan Consulting. I'm also chairman of the Indian River Neighborhood Association Land Use Committee. I'm also vice president of the executive board. I spoke in favor of this project at P&Z. I'm very familiar with it, and I'm going to continue to speak in support of this project. So I support this project. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Seeing none, is there a final presentation by county staff? Nope. Is there a final presentation by the applicant? No, thank you. All right, have all documents and tangible evidence been admitted into evidence to the clerk? I'm assuming so. All right, with that, we will close the public hearing. Yes?
Move approval.
All right, I have a motion by Commissioner Flesher with a second by Commissioner Lohr. Any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. All right. With that, we will move on to public discussion items. Ms. Judy Greenberg, who has been waiting patiently, thank you, Judy, is going to come and talk to us about the Roseland celebration on February 17th. And I think during the break, everybody was given a flyer. I'm filling for you while you walk up here. Everybody was given a flyer with some of the details.
Yes.
Good to see you this morning.
Thank you. Oh, it's patiently, I've been really enjoying listening to the discussions. I'm going to take my glasses off and on because, you know, as you get older, sometimes one pair doesn't do it all, right?
You're in good company.
Pardon me?
You're in good company.
Can y'all hear me? Am I
Yes,
in
ma'am,
the
you're
right
good.
spot to speak?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, very interesting discussion about that last land use request. And it's not easy to balance all of those requests on an ongoing basis and look 25, 30 years down the road. We hope our kids are actually doing that in their 20s and being realistic. I'm Judy Greenberg, president of the Roseland Women's Club. I reside at 24 Sunset Drive in Roseland. Good morning, Madam Chairman and fellow commissioners. I am here today with a personal invitation to the Roseland celebration. The event starts early on Saturday, February 17th, wrapping up at around 1 p.m. We're early risers and get her done type folks up there in the rural areas, I guess. We have much to celebrate. 132 years of Roseland history, the struggles of early settlers, the perseverance of developers through land booms and busts, the devastation of wars at home and on foreign lands have shaped Roseland, just like the rest of our country. Equally important will be the history we make during our lives. Through celebrating the current, on February 17th, as a community, we can begin to forge the future of Roseland for generations to come. We're already looking at comp plan implications in that area. The location of this year's celebration will be the Roseland Community Building and Community Park. I emphasize this year's celebration and this particular location. The Roseland Community Building has been brought back into service through the dedication of the Indian River County and the people of Roseland. Just 2 years ago, the doors were opened again for use by the community. The Roseland Women's Club immediately focused its members and other community organizations in discussion to determine how the building can best serve the needs of the residents. With community backing, the Roseland Women's Club actively engaged the Indian River County Parks and Recreation Department to address current and emerging issues related to the grounds surrounding the building, riverbank, and dock access. I'm really interested in that Rotary project with the life-saving, just another thing to add to the list, right? The Friends of St. Sebastian River and Roseland Community Association pledge support for the goals of this endeavor and have actively engaged their members also. So we have 3 local organizations working hand in hand. Together, we invite you to the relaxing charm of the Roseland Community Park and building for our celebration. And we hope each of you can maybe come out for just a little while. And in fact, one of your staff persons is going to have a booth there. Shauna is actually going to have one of our indoor spots. So we've got vendors inside the building, and we have them out in the park. And I want to thank Laura Moss bringing to our attention the newly initiated Adopt a Park program. That has been really a tremendous thing the county did. I've had the pleasure of working with Adopt a Park programs throughout the state of Florida with the Garden Club and even Southeast United States. And they're wonderful programs to engage your volunteers. And of course, Sue, thank you very much for your efforts along the way with that building. I was not in the area when the county had to decide, was that going to be an asset or would that whole area change? And I have to say, I'm pleased that y'all made those decisions. There's still little issues, and Public Works, we're working with them very well, I think, and facilities to work through those on an ongoing basis. So hope to see y'all around. Thank you. Any questions?
Thank you. February 17th, 8 to 1.
Yes.
Be there or be square.
That's it. Thank you.
Be there.
We
Thank you.
look forward to it, as
Part-
we have in years past, whether it was there or at the old firehouse.
Yes.
And I'll tell you what, I look forward to the music.
Oh, yeah.
Did you notice that? Yes, we
Yes.
do have, we have a
I
little
look
bit of
forward to that
everything.
music. I'll tell you, you have great groups. And this year you have Strummer Time as well.
Yep.
And the Roseland group has, I just love listening to everybody playing those strings.
Wonderful.
And
Well,
the washboard and everything else that they throw in.
okay, well,
Historic environment.
thank you very much.
We'll be there.
Thank you, Judy.
I
Thank you for the
appreciate it.
invitation.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Appreciate it.
All right. The next item is public notice. Mr. DeBrawl.
Yes, on February 20th, 2024, there'll be a public hearing to consider an ordinance amendment to Indian River Code Section 305.11, imposition of additional court costs in criminal cases pursuant to Florida Section Statute 939.185, as amended. Madam Chairman, I turn it back over to you.
That sounds like it's going to be a riveting public hearing.
Sure it will be.
Yeah. All right, we look forward to that. Thank you, Bill. We'll move on to Parks, Recreation, and Conservation, 12A1, Environmental Land Bond, Introduction to the ArcGIS Hub/Dashboard.
Good morning, Madam Chair. Thank you. I do believe staff, because it's GIS related, needs just a minute to connect. With
Well, then
your
answer
pleasure.
this question
Yes.
while we're killing time while they're connecting.
Yes.
Is it a hub or is it a dashboard? Or
Yeah,
is it
so for
both?
those of us not, who have not gained expertise in
Do you not know the
geospatial
answer?
analysis and things of this nature, we're getting better at it, though.
We're using all sorts of words, riveting, spatial analysis.
Oh, by the way, Judy, I think Conservation Lands will have a booth at your event as well on the 17th, so, yeah. Wonderful. So with that, I guess we can just kind of begin to discuss it globally, and Paige will do her magic and connect.
We can wait for Paige, it's
background while we're
fine.
waiting, if you'd like.
But I will say, I'm very impressed. You know, those of us who lived through the land acquisition process for environmentally sensitive and historic lands back in 2000 and beyond, remember this, well, proverbial smoke-filled room with PowerPoint slides, and most of the analysis and presentation data and information was just available in either hard paper packets or provided right at the panel discussions or the committee discussions back then. And we've come a long way, baby, because today you're going to see a demonstration of our GIS department's efforts in modernizing this process and giving your appointees in the ELAP, the Environmental Lands Acquisition Panel, the tools they need to really dig in and make some great decisions, you know, based on the data they're going to have access to, and it will be available to the public as well, and through our web page. And page has a double meaning today because Paige Lester has been instrumental as Michael Stout in the GIS department in this
You're
endeavor.
really doing a good job of filling this time, Mike. I have to give you credit. I even like the page thing. But here's the question. I'll help you out. Does this mean that the LAC commit or the ELAP committee does not have to go out and do super awesome site visits through the woods like we used to have to do like 20 years ago at the last
Not
time?
have to. Welcome to get the boots on the ground, but I think this provides a window through their laptop.
There was nothing like trudging through
Yeah.
the brush by the airport in Roseland. Judy will appreciate that.
We
I
will
remember
make
doing
sure-
that with Roland one day.
Yes, we will make sure that we find some exciting sites, but no, it really doesn't take the place of that. What it really is a really neat resource to kind of give a lot of transparency to the process because there's so much information that's
Oh, yeah.
presented and it's so readily accessible. And Paige, I can't say enough about how hard she's worked and how diligent and amazing her skill
It's,
set is because I'm always in awe.
It's been great. So we continue to make progress on the $50 million bond issue to acquire environmentally significant lands. Your last action as a board was on December 12th, where you approved the ELAP guide, right? And the guide serves as basically the handbook for the members to attract and view and evaluate recommendations for purchase. With that, we've encountered some very sophisticated software. As you know, the county currently has Esri as a tool available, and it's so nice to use when you want to look up a property. So what Paige and Michael have done is taken that existing technology and added a GIS hub, ultimately resulting in a dashboard, and she'll explain the value of the hub as the dashboard stems from it. It's the central component of the hub and contains links to previous acquisitions and the guide itself, and a searchable database, again, all accessible through the website, both for the ELAP panel and our public at large.
Sorry,
So
we're having
with that,
a bit of a network issue, sorry.
okay, I can keep going.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, it's like the PIN or the password, which one? We're used to having the fingerprint readers at our desk, so we're too spoiled.
Pardon us.
The question is, do you remember your PIN or your password, your
Yeah, I
fingerprint
might have to
reader?
just, I'll just have to go in, yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Technology. So we did do a brief preview for the ELAP at the January 16th meeting, just to kind of give them a little bit of a taste as well as what it's going to look like. Got really good feedback, some really good questions, but I'm excited. I think we're going to be able to launch this probably I think on the 16th is what we're shooting for.
Okay.
So it'll be about 2 weeks before the actual accepting of the nominations on March 1st. So everybody will get a chance to kind of get used to using it. So.
So, Madam Chair, you say, well, where's our Parks and Rec Department chair or head today, Beth? Well, I'm glad you asked, because she actually is appointed to the management board of the Indian River Lagoon Council, I am proud to say.
She was appointed the
To
chair.
the board, to the board.
To the board?
Yeah, the management board, and she's attending that regular meeting right now for that investiture, so I want to congratulate her.
Yes, very much so. That's very much an honor to be on the management board. I'm glad we have staff participating on that level.
And Wendy, I believe, serves on the STEM committee.
I'm on the STEM, so I have to run from this meeting up there to listen and participate on that. So very, always learn stuff. We actually are talking about some new grant opportunities and pretty excited about some things that are going on.
Staying in the loop on the grant opportunities and how they make their decisions regarding such is always good for us.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, so now we're getting
We've
logged on
stretched
here.
it. We've stretched it and we're here.
Of course, you know they're housed in the old school at Sebastian, and that's home to our new Sebastian Veteran Services Office, so we're very, very close to the council in more ways than one.
Sorry, guys, they didn't like either one of us on that laptop. Won't take me too long to get logged. Everything's set up for you.
One of the neat things that we have on the dashboard, well, actually the hub, and she's going to explain the differences. There's so many funding opportunities that we've been able to take advantage of over the years for our public access improvements and our habitat restoration. And one of the great things that we've been able to achieve with the hub is to formally recognize all of our project partners, talk about projects. There's just linkages to all kinds of information. And as Paige is going to say there and explain to you, there's a lot of different permission levels that'll be available. So staff obviously will be using this for all of the data sourcing. This is where everything's going to be stored, so we don't have to go and have a variety of different locations for data. Additionally, with that, we also will be updating the data as we get new information, which is obviously with the land of GIS a constant enterprise. And then the public will have access, and the board and the ELAP will have access, but the great thing about the hub is it kind of is tailored to who the viewer is so that you know what you want to look for and you can find it easily. So that's kind of the goal of the process, is to make it as simple as possible. I believe this is going to save a lot of staff time with questions. People won't have to bother calling and inquiring because they can literally log on and find all the information about the active projects, where they are, information that's been collected. So we're super excited about it. And we're close.
We are close. There we go. Okay.
Nothing ever goes the way you plan.
All right.
I have learned that.
Sorry about that delay.
There we go.
guys.
Yay. Okay.
All right.
And I just wanted to say as a last comment, Paige has worked incredibly hard on this, and she has really been, for someone who's not a biologist, it's pretty hard to understand a lot of this information. And she has just been so diligent and careful with how she's presenting this information and detail-oriented. And I'm just really impressed with the work that she's been able to accomplish. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Paige.
Okay, can everyone hear me? I'm Paige Lester. I work for the GIS division. I'm very excited to be able to share this with you guys today. I'm excited about this project, and so here we are. So we decided we have this bond in front of us, a 3-year bond. It's a big deal, and we wanted to do it right. There's a lot of information, a lot of data, a lot of documents that go along with it, and so Parks came to me and asked, let's make a dashboard to help with the process. Great idea. But there was just so much information that's out there. And also for people, the public, they don't really understand, what is the bond? What does it mean? Let's help them understand it. So to me, the dashboard is more of the tool, the center tool to help staff, and also for the public to see, the data that's out there that helps inform our decisions about what properties we want to acquire, right? So the dashboard is really that center tool, kind of the center of all of it, but there's so much more information, especially about the previous bonds, our current conservation lands out there. You can't really share that without having a proper place for it. So it was, I looked into it and thought that this would be a good solution to have the hub and then have the dashboard be the center of that hub. So that way the public could be more involved, we could educate them, make it easier. So this, and the great thing about it is that there was no extra cost to the county to do this, because it was already part of our agreement. So this is the landing page, or the hub. It's really like a website kind of, or a site that kind of stores information, and it also stores all of the documents for the hub, or for the acquisition process. But you can make all of the content permission-based, so everything isn't necessarily going to be available to everyone all the time. You know, when you get updated information, you can say, okay, this is the most recent survey or the most recent management plan. We can make that public and then archive the older stuff, right? So, and as with the hub, it has a really great search feature as well, so it's real easy to kind of search for stuff for staff or the public based on what they are allowed to see. So I'll just go ahead and kind of run through and talk about it. This is kind of the front page of it. The search is right at the top. You could search, you know, for like a survey, for example, and then you can see if you have any of surveys loaded, for example, then you can immediately find that and take a look at it, which is really helpful and easy for staff. So, oops, there we go. So the one great thing about the hub too is that we can keep adding content to it over the 3-year bond period. So when we get properties acquired and then projects start happening with those acquisitions, then we'll be able to add that information as it comes. So we wanted this to be very public friendly and really explain you know, the bond, the referendum, and kind of also give information about our current conservation lands and what happened in the previous bond, like we said. So this is a link to some of our existing maps. I'm not going to go there now, but you've all seen them. But I do have links throughout. You know, if someone wanted to actually look at the resolution, they can just click on that and see the actual resolution here. Very easy, very nice to have that. Right now, this is not public, just so you're not going to find it anywhere on the website yet. We wanted to, that will come later in this discussion, but this site just has kind of some really great, you know, visuals about, you know, where we've been as far as the history of conservation efforts for Indian River County, and then, you know, obviously where we're going to be going. So, and again, here's all the old resolutions. If you were interested to take a look at those ancient documents, you can see those too. And I was, because I didn't really know much about the previous bonds either, because I was a youngin' then. So yeah, this is another section here about the previous bond initiatives. So this site is really great because it has a lot of pages you can add that really talks about the background. Here are the sample ballots from 1992 and 2004. I thought that was kind of neat to add those in. And then let me go back. Let's see, let's go back. And y'all will have a chance to kind of really go through this yourself once we launch. I think I'll let Wendy give those dates, but then we have a section about the public partnerships with Indian River County Conservation Lands. So these are a lot of our partners here, and then there's links to lots of those efforts, which is really nice because they did have a good hand in kind of matching funds in the previous bonds. So it's, you know, really nice to be able to see that. So then you come down to actually the dashboard, which is the center, kind of the center tool for our staff to make these decisions, right? They're going to be looking at data. So all of the information that goes into the dashboard right now, we don't have any projects, right? So whenever Wendy puts those in, she has a different application that she puts it in that is not public. Then those things will just load up once she puts all the information in from the nominations and then decides if they pass the minimum requirements. So I did put in some test data, and I'll just show you here because it's a little easier to kind of navigate. We didn't want to choose, we wanted to choose a county property, but obviously these are not going to be eligible for the bond because they're already conservation land that we own. But here's an example of North Sebastian being one of the nominations. And then when she puts in all the information, there will be a lot of information that automatically populates here in these different tabs, right? Like, soil types, land use, land cover types, and stuff like that. And there'll be a lot of links here for them to review the data. You can also come in and turn on, there's going to be a ton of layers. There already is a lot, but there's going to be some more layers that come in here that will help them make those decisions. Like I've got seagrass turned off. You can't see it right now, but so this is kind of the tool, and they can kind of, use this map and investigate the data as they need to. So all of this data will be stored in the hub, in the cloud, secure cloud, so they can always access it. The panel will have access. The public will have access to certain things. So we're going back to the hub. The hub also has sort of some, a meeting schedule. And then this projects list it's kind of like a placeholder because we have no projects yet. And then like this example is just the listed panel, but it's not visible to the public. I'm logged in right now, so I can see it, but the public will not be able to see this. And I can make anything on the hub, restricted if needed, but really there's not much to restrict because right now I don't have the projects showing because we don't have any real projects yet. So whenever this launches, this won't be visible. So, but later when we do have projects, it will be. So, because we do want to share that information with the public. So, I don't think I have.
One of the things I wanted to point out was those of you that have read the guide, there's a matrix in there that has a whole bunch of criteria for evaluation. When the public gets into the dashboard, there's going to be tabs in there, and they'll be able to see how things are rated, how the ELAP is guiding things. There's a ton of documents that are associated with every single submittal. A lot of those will be available through tabs on the dashboard. And as I mentioned earlier, I think it saves staff a lot of time because instead of, when they click on that project at the bottom, they'll be able to see all this information and kind of familiarize themselves so that when they come to ELAP meetings or whatever, they already have a lot of the information that they probably would have asked and stuff. So just really impressed at the product. When I went back and looked at the original bonds that are currently being done by Manatee County and some others, theirs is not even nearly as detailed as this. So I think it just is a really great resource. And like I said, I can't thank GIS and Paige in particular for really helping conservation with this effort because I think it's going to be a wonderful tool for the public and for the board and the ELAP and staff.
Do you guys have any questions? I'm sure you might have.
Anybody have any questions for
Just,
Commissioner
I
Mom?
just have a comment. Thank you, Paige, for going back and researching the history. I love seeing the, what'd you call them, ancient documents.
Yeah, I like that too.
Right.
Commissioner Ehrman?
Madam Chairman, thank you. As this board's representative on the ELAP committee, I want to point out a couple things. First of all, I want to congratulate each one of you for your appointments on the ELAP. We have a very strong and very mission-focused related board, on these projects. So I'm hoping that we receive some good projects and good potentials over the next few months, because our board is focused. Of course, our chairman is Commissioner Lohr's choice, former chairman, and Commissioner O'Brien. He's leading the charge. But this project was shown to us at the last meeting, and even since been updated, I can tell, since we showed it to the ELAP folks. And Paige, great job. We're thankful to have you. You're now a member of the dynamic duo team, Solely Blessed. So you're like their sidekick. You get all the information for them so they can get out there and do what they need to do. But it's very good. I really like the way this board is proceeding. Going through the guide was a little tedious, seemed a little boring at times, but we made it through it and we published a good document. And but they were all champs. We were there some meetings for 3 hours getting this stuff done, and they did a great job. So I'm very happy with so far where we're going with this. I just hope we have some good projects to evaluate, and if not, I'm sure Wendy and Beth will be out there looking for some if we don't get any submittals. But
I think we will. I'm pretty sure.
Commissioner, I guess I'm gonna end it right here saying, just to reemphasize, this group is doing a good job, and they're working very hard, and Paige's effort is going to really make things even better. So I'm very pleased.
Awesome. I have a question, Paige. So the GIS where you can turn different layers off and on and all that, is there like a guide for people that don't talk GIS language to know what to turn off and on? And
So, yeah, so one of the things that I have not had a chance to do yet is sort of write a little kind of how-to, because what I can do is I can add a really nice rich text tab within the dashboard itself that says, hey, click here for help, and it tells you, it'll tell you everything about, these are the kind of layers that are in the list, the layer list, and here's how you turn them on and off. And then here's how you see the metadata, or the sources for that data, where it came from and such. So that is one thing I have yet to have the time to do, but I intend to do that. Yes.
all right. I was just curious because I like to play around, and would go in and click on different stuff, but doesn't mean I know what I'm looking at or what it's telling me. So I'm one of those people that definitely would need a guide to help explain it. And then what is the process, might be more for Wendy, for people that want to nominate, I guess, is that what we're calling it, property? How would they submit that, and what kind of requirements on, I guess, more of a minimum basis are we looking for? Because, I might not want somebody to build next door to me, so I want to nominate my neighbor's property, but I don't necessarily think that meets the goals of what we're trying to accomplish.
Sure. We actually set up an email strictly for the bond. It's environmental.bond@indianriver.gov. So that's one way that people can submit nominations. There is a nomination form in the back of the guide for folks that don't want to go through the email process. Certainly everything can be provided to us directly in hard copy. So there's several avenues. We eventually would like to have a link on the hub itself where people will be able to nominate and upload information. That's something that we're kind of investigating from a sort of an IT question that I, like you, don't even begin to understand some of that stuff. So as far as that goes, and your question about can anybody nominate anything? The answer is yes. Any parcel can be nominated by anybody. But there is in the guide a minimum criteria at the very end that a parcel would have to meet to even be considered. So it's staff's obligation to collect those nominations, do a cursory review to see if the minimum criteria are met, and then at that point, we assimilate all of those projects, bring them to the ELAP for them to begin to consider. The environmental consultant that was brought on board that you have approved for work may be asked to go out and do some due diligence to verify some information and collect more data for us. And then the ELAP considers all of this and ranks and then brings them back to the board for your consideration.
So I might be able to nominate my neighbor's property, but it probably wouldn't go anywhere. is what you're
Anybody
saying.
can
All right.
nominate anything.
Well, I can nominate, they might nominate me, who knows? And then Paige, last question. So I know you put a lot of work into the dashboard and those layers and hubs and everything. Is that something that we can replicate over time for different departments and different things like roads or stormwater, utilities and that type of thing?
Human services,
Human-
absolutely.
Yeah.
They're in high demand, I can tell you. We had a pry Page away, thank you, Michael, and Dan Russell, because they are in high demand every day.
Paige gave me a whole bunch of links when we started this for other governmental entities that do these for initiatives. They do them for, like if you were doing the Cross Florida Trail right now, you
Right.
could have something just for that. It's a really great resource and gives the public a great view into what we're doing so that it's not all done in a vacuum.
Yeah, no, I think it is a good way to visually let people know what we're doing and let them kind of manipulate around with some of that information too, because I do think people don't understand the amount of information that is inputted into some of the decisions that staff makes. It's not just, oh, this looks super awesome, I'm gonna pluck it out of the air. There's a lot that goes into it. So.
I
Thank
agree.
you.
I think the transparency is good for the public, so, yeah.
Thank you. Commissioner Flesher, Commissioner Laura, did you have any comments?
Madam Chair, I'll just say, the transparency is key to me, and this is huge when we're dealing with these kind of dollars. I think what's most important is it's refreshing to see departments working together back to back. I'm not so sure that that happened all the time in the past, and I appreciate both departments working together, and it's refreshing.
Yes, the end result is much more robust than had it been done in a vacuum. So thank you guys. And thank you for lending Paige to the effort.
Michael Stout, GIS Director.
You guys, this was just informational, or did you need a?
Yeah, there really
motion?
wasn't any action requested. We just wanted to give you guys a preview and let you know that it will be launched hopefully on the 16th, assuming we don't have any more technical glitches, and I apologize for this morning. It should have run a little bit more smoothly. And then we did announce at the last ELAT meeting that we begin accepting nominations on March 1st.
March
So
1st?
we will be
Okay.
hitting the ground running.
Awesome, you guys are getting ready to get real busy, so I'm glad you guys
Yes.
got this set up. Thank you for showing it to us.
Very informal.
All right, commissioners. Our last item is my item, which is the county attorney recruitment process, which we kind of tabled at the last meeting. So just as a follow-up to some of those conversations, we did have a discussion at the last meeting that we were going to try to get a job description in place so we could get that out to the bar and the Association of County Attorneys and that type of thing. Suzanne has sent out several job descriptions and listings from other counties for their county attorney. I don't know if you guys have had a chance to look at those, if you have anything on those that you like or don't like. If you would like me to work with Suzanne to take those and maybe make our own and update the one that we used in 2013, I'd be happy to do that. So I'm just kind of looking for some additional feedback and how we want to move forward. And I also believe that we have an actual quote for a recruitment process, because that was part of what we discussed, trying to get that, so we knew what numbers we were talking about.
Yes, Madam Chair, it's not the $38,000, it's just over 24,000.
So just over $24,000. So, I don't know what you guys are feeling at this point. I think at our last meeting, again, we talked about trying to get this out on the street while we thought about going through the recruitment process. I'm happy to try to coordinate with Suzanne and get some of that information out and then, bring it back for approval if that's what you'd like. My only concern is then once we get to a point where we are taking in applications and resumes, who's going to be the one that's triaging and reviewing all those and seeing if they meet requirements and those types of things. To me, having a process in place through a recruiter or something like that helps with that. Otherwise, you know, we're all going to be looking at multiple applications and trying to figure out which ones are our top 5.
Madam Chair, I would also recommend that we get with Mr. DeBraw's office, find out in the last several years what we have been subcontracting out with respect to legal, and keep that in mind, maybe triage the top 3 or 4. I know there's documents somewhere, and that way that will help us make our decision and hopefully lessen subcontracting attorney fees out.
Did any of you guys submit to Suzanne any specifics on what you wanted to see in a county attorney?
I have not.
No, thank you, Madam Chairman. I like the fact that we let the bar know and local people know that we put it out, but I have to agree with what you said just a few minutes ago, a few seconds ago, was when we get to the point to where we need to vet these candidates, I don't think our HR staff they're not attorneys, they're not professionals in this field of finding professionals for an organization like ours. I think that she can compile the list of information and send it to what I feel we need to do would be just like we did with the county administrator, and we spent more on that, but spend the $24,000 to have a professional recruiter vet the information submitted by Suzanne and the information that and candidates that they have gotten from the outside that they do through their channels. And again, my criteria would be that they have to know Florida and government law. But I think we're gonna get to a point to where we are beyond our capabilities in our HR department to vet a county attorney's position. So I'm good with what we've done so far. I think that information should be compiled and passed on. Basically, if you're a local attorney that wants to apply, you can either apply through the county or you can apply through the recruiter if that's where we choose to go. But the requirements are all the same, and then when we get close to the end, all of those candidates are being vetted by somebody that does this. And I don't want to put that burden and that responsibility on our HR staff to do that.
Yeah. Yes, thank you for mentioning that, and I would agree with that. I think when we get to that point, definitely, we should have a recruiter look at it. I know the community thinks that everyone reports to us. That's not true. 2 people report to us, as we know, and that's the county administrator and the county attorney. So the 2 positions are key and very important to us, and very much in favor of having a professional recruiter.
Madam Chairman, if I may. Go ahead. Thank you. In the past, the board has gone ahead and worked with the HR director and highlighted certain areas of experience that they would like to see. Obviously, local government experience would be high on the list, experience with public records laws, experience with eminent domain might be there, real estate, there's a laundry list of things. You will get applicants that are qualified for this job, not that you will see are very qualified for the job and meet those requirements. You will also get a laundry list of applicants that are not qualified for the job, that have personal injury experience, or they have workers' comp experience that are kind of grasping at straws. Those are easy resumes to weed out. And in the past, when we've gone through this with Mr. Reingold and Mr. Plackowicz, the cream has risen to the top where there have been 5 or 6 very strong candidates, very strong resumes that the board has decided to take a look at. I guess my advice to you would be that go ahead and release the opening to the Florida Bar, to the Florida Association of County Attorneys and Florida Association of Counties, to the City Government, Local Government Board, to the League of Cities, to all the different areas out there that we can work with Suzanne and take a look and see if past history is not, if past history has repeated itself. And I think you will find that it will. When I put out for the Assistant County Attorney position, there were 3 stronger candidates that had local government experience and government experience that quickly distinguished themselves over and above the rest. And it wasn't a big lift for Susan and I to take a look at those and decide this person should get an interview, this person should not get an interview. I don't want you to be afraid of rolling up your sleeves and taking a look at this. I don't think that the recruiting process will be that difficult.
I don't have a problem rolling up our sleeves and taking a look at this, but my concern is you and Susan have the ability to talk to each other in the office. We don't. So determining who makes the top and who doesn't, if there's not somebody, one person that's put in charge of that, then we're gonna be doing it at a commission meeting.
And that's the way it had been done before.
That doesn't seem very professional or efficient to me.
Madam Chair, if you're suggesting you want a member of us, this body, to do that, I'd be happy to do it. One thing, though, is Mr. Chairman said something about the vetting process. Well, if you're going to hire a firm, which I'm against, you're going to hire them to recruit, advertise, or you're going to hire them to vet?
That's what I'm trying to get you guys to give me some direction on. I mean, I asked at the last meeting so we could because there's nothing to even put out on the street yet. So I asked at the last meeting for you guys to give Suzanne some type of information about what you wanted in a county attorney. So we could put together that application to even put out on the street. So I had a conversation with her about what I would like to see. She sent the last job description from 2013. She sent job descriptions from Martin County, St. Lucie, Seminole, and Brevard County. That came in last week. It went to all of us. But so I need to know what it is that you guys want, because otherwise I'm left to put together, which I'm fine. I can work with Suzanne and put together a job description and bring it back. I just wanted you guys' input on what that was gonna be. And for me, and I understand that you're not in favor of a firm, my only thing is for $24,000, we could probably save ourselves a lot of the money that you're talking about over the long term with getting somebody in that is able and capable of handling all those things that is not being contracted out.
Mr. DeBrawl, what process did you use to find Keith?
The same process that we've just discussed. Advertised with the Florida Bar Association as county attorneys, cities.
And you had 3 very qualified.
NeoGov, Indeed, all of those are in our package already as far as hiring. And yes, I had 3 good candidates.
I would suggest that we do that, and the 4 of us that have not supply Suzanne with what we're looking for and try to get it as quick as possible.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm looking for the recruiter to recruit, also recruit and vet. As I said earlier, this is one of 2 key positions. $24,000 is certainly a good investment in someone who will occupy a key position. And I don't want to leave it to chance that the cream somehow rises to the top after you discard all these things that waste people's time. With a recruiter, you have that added layer of oversight and also bringing the top people in. I want the top person that we can have. I don't want to leave it to chance.
Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you, Chairwoman. I just wanted to say that, at first, I wanted to say thank you to Chairwoman Adams for bringing this item forward this far in advance. I'm sure you can understand that from a staff standpoint, for myself and for the staff in the attorney's office, it is a bit of a concern, obviously, that our now county attorney is leaving here in the next few months, as we've had significant turnover in our office from one county attorney to another. So I just want to thank you for bringing that forward and getting the ball moving on the subject and on the issue, as Commissioner Moss has pointed out, is a very significant position. I would like to also just kind of touch briefly on the issue about outsourcing. So items, I've heard that topic kind of come up several different times, whether it's today or in passing. I will tell you that, I mean, there are items that are outsourced. Obviously, there are bigger litigious items that are outsourced. There are some items that are still handled in office. I can tell you in past. I myself have handled several of them. I know Keith is capable of handling others. With that being said as well, I just want to make sure that we remember that whatever item is being outsourced, the number of staff that we actually have in our office versus the number of departments, the demands that are put on staff in our department. We are one department and we serve all the departments in the county. I think sometimes departments forget that. So our day is essentially putting out fires most of the time. So I just want you all to just kind of be cognizant when you're looking at that of, you know, if we're spending time, also additional time on litigation, that may take away time from other areas, or the possibility of even, and obviously whoever were to be put into the county attorney position would be the one to look at that, but possibly another position to help fill that role if we wanted an in-house litigation person. I don't know. But as the person who will be left after Mr. DeBrawl retires, I just wanted to at least let this board know kind of, you know, what's going on. I think you should know what's going on in your, for the people that work for you.
Yeah.
That's all.
No, I appreciate that. And let me try to get us to some point here. So why don't we do this? If you guys can get to Suzanne what it is that you want to see, please review. If you haven't gotten the jobs descriptions, I'll make sure they get sent back out to everybody.
I believe I have an advertisement, so it's something else. I want to make sure that we all have the same
Right.
information across the board.
Yeah, we'll make sure that that gets sent back out with the job descriptions. Please let Suzanne, or if it's easier, whomever, your assistant, let Suzanne know, or I need to compile all that information so we can get a job description for ourselves prepared. What we can do, if we can get that done, we can have a discussion at the next meeting about that job description, so it can be put out, because right now, we want to put it out, but we don't have anything. So I just need to get from you guys what that looks like, and we will put something together as a job description, because whatever path we end up taking, we'll need a job description, and that will jumpstart the process, right? So if we can do that, I would really like to approve a job description at the next meeting, so it's ready to go on the street that afternoon to the bar and whomever else. In the meantime, Mr. Tukanich, do you have an actual proposal from a recruitment firm?
I can get an actual proposal, but I just called and asked what the amount was.
Okay, if you could get us an actual proposal that spells out what they would and would not do, then, because what we had talked about at the last meeting was trying to run some parallel courses at the same time. I just, again, like I said at the last meeting, I don't, and to Susan's point, I don't want to be here on June 31st wringing our hands that Mr. DeBral is leaving in August and we haven't started the process. So I will probably annoy you guys by just putting this on as an ongoing item until we hire somebody.
Madam Chairman,
yes.
I won't be wringing my hands.
Well, no, you'll be packing your bags, but let's not go into that.
We're gonna lock the doors upstairs, that's what we're gonna do, with you in it.
So as we leave it today, Mr. Administrator will get us an actual proposal.
Make sure the emails are sent back out. There's 2 emails.
Correct.
One had about 9, and the most recent one, which was shortly thereafter, was just the one that you mentioned, Martin Seminole, which is the most recent county attorney recruitment, and then Brevard,
Right.
St. Lucie.
And Martin, I think that one had the job descriptions and the first one had more of like, not stuff that was as
I've
helpful.
got one from a place from Texas.
Extraneous.
Yeah, yeah. And then if there's any requirements that you guys want, like, if you want certain amount of years of service in certain areas, whether that's eminent domain, transactional, I don't know, interagency, public, whatever terms or non-terms, if you don't want personal injury, although I don't know, sometimes I think that might be helpful around here, but we'll get all that put together, and I would really just like to make some decisions on the 20th. So if, I'm gonna annoy you guys until it happens. Does that sound good? Okay,
Madam Chair.
yes.
I just wanted to just recap something. We heard about how important a recruitment organization is, and yes, we're happy to see a proposal and a defined course of action. But I just want to remind my colleagues that, and no reflection of John Tikanich, but he was selected with the recruitment process. But I want to bring up that if you all might recall, we were exposed to a list of applicants that was never intended for us to see because they had to be vetted out. That's the type of applicants that are compelled to apply. You can't prohibit anybody from applying. I think a job or a position of this importance, yes, is very important to all of us. They're one of 2 individuals that work directly for the 5 county commissioners, as well as every element and department in this organization. With that in mind, and they keep us straight. With that in mind, I believe that, and if I understood the county attorney correctly, is that we have the opportunity to post this in 3 different arenas where there exists a plethora of certified county attorneys, assistant county attorneys, that might find Indian River County to be as special a place as we see it and want to relocate here. There might be such a qualified individual available already, so that we're not considering, I believe and again, you know, John, along with some of the colleagues that we assessed and was narrowed down, was also somebody who did a car detailing process. That was their years of experience. No schooling whatsoever. I trust you're going to do a far better job.
You haven't looked at my car.
That's why we have you. Well, and I like the fact that you said you wouldn't clean cars, right? That was even a bonus. But my point is that we saw about 30% of those applicants really should never have been on the list to begin with. So when we look at professional recruiting, that might be a better choice, is to go to the 3 foundations that have such people already within the fold. And I just wanted to say all that because I believe that there's plenty of fruit right in our own garden, whether it's internal, external, within Florida, on the bar, or in the fraternal organizations that you belong to, that I think people will be delighted to apply. As opposed to spending $24,000 to vet out later on when we can have it here, unless we have not a recruitment organization, but an assessment organization, something along that lines, which would assess with us, but not recruit, because after all, many of the applicants that were on the county administrator's list were also on 6 or 7 other lists. They were looking for a job and not the job.
Well, that is a good point, and Mr. Administrator, maybe when you get a proposal, it can be a proposal for the recruitment, but also a proposal for the assessment and vetting process without the recruitment. So we can send them the applications that we receive, and they can do more of the vetting of credentials and the social media stuff and all that stuff. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, because it did,
The
otherwise.
stuff that would be harder for us to do.
We're involved with financing their
Right.
trips down here for go-sees and,
Okay, and if they could just kind of, that way we can mix and match, and if we have a hybrid process, we have a hybrid process, but I think that'll give us all the information to make a decision at the next meeting, but we need a job description, so get me your information.
yes,
Madam Chair, if I can,
Commissioner Lohr.
thank you. If I can ask the administrator a question. In the future, who do you see handling our collective bargaining issues?
So, well, currently, Michael Zito is the lead, as a part of that position. And then in this most recent evaluation, I spoke with our HR about getting more involved and taking a more active role, complementary to Michael. So, and that's generally where it happens. I mean, she is involved, but I'm asking her taking a more active role and increasing her involvement in that.
So you have no plans for the county attorney's office ever being involved in collective bargaining?
Well, actually, so my approach to collective bargaining is you put together a team, but your HR kind of runs some of is like that point person. And when you start off with a contract or whatever, you bring the whole team together. You would have your attorney there, you'd have your finance or your budget, you would have the appropriate departments that are impacted. So you'd have that, and then you would kind of decide what those issues are, and then you would have one lead person.
So do we have anybody in the county attorney's office now that coordinates with Mr. Zito with respect to, other than Mr. Zito? So that might be something board members to think about when we're
Use an
looking.
outside counsel, correct?
We do have a firm, yes.
If that is something that, if you want collective bargaining experience, put that on the list and we'll incorporate it into the job description or requirements.
We never know.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
agreed, but Sheriff brings up a very interesting point. In years past, HR handled it, and that Mr. Zito was in the room, secondary. He is an attorney as well. He has law experience, but of recent time, most of this has been on the shoulders of Mr. Zito, and I don't know how much relationship there is with the General Counsel's office, but there should be a stronger stance, and it's very refreshing to hear that, John, that you want to see more of a human resources approach, because that's how it was, and it worked very well. I don't know, I guess we got away from that in the past few years. It's not just recently, it's in the past few years, gotten away from that, and then it's been on Mr. Zito Shoulders.
And I think Michael can share that Suzanne is involved in the process. There are just some components of the process I think we'd like to see her get more involved in when it comes to the recommendations depending on like a grievance or something like that, you know.
I realize this is a sidebar discussion, but it still applies.
Yeah, it really depends on the gravity of what's in front of us as far as the grievance or the weight of the collective bargaining process, whether it's a reopener, whether we're opening the entire contract, and whether we're seeking outside counsel. And some of these assignments are just by way of evolution and efficiency. I mean, over time, we look to save dollars and synergize, and I happen to be in position to take on that role. The county attorney, frankly, was never asked to take on that role. It's not something that they traditionally have practiced, and their other counties may have treated differently. But at the end of the day, John's approach is to assemble a collaborative team with some level of expertise that we can draw upon outside of the county in these areas that are highly specialized, but certainly would welcome the county attorney to that team by all means.
Madam Chairman.
Yes, Commissioner Ehrman.
If I may, I'm going to chime in on the collective bargaining thing because Mike and I have sat across the table numerous times
Yes, sir.
Oh, it was the other way, though, Joe.
over the years.
All right.
The county was always fortunate because Mike is an attorney. He was able to do that, but sometimes the county hired outside counsel, hired Jeff Mandel to come in and do the process. If you want to look at having your county attorney's office be involved in the collective bargaining thing, you're going to have to do what Susan mentioned. They don't have enough people. They were putting out fires every day. You're going to have to add to what you want that to do, or get somebody or hire somebody with expertise. That's what I mean. And Bill even said it in what he spoke about a few minutes ago, that you're going to have attorneys apply that have experience in collective bargaining. They may have more in workman's comp. They may have a land use component. I mean, I would like to see our attorney be well-versed in all those, but some are well-versed in certain areas more so than others. I believe Dylan was more of a land use guy when he came from Jacksonville. You know, he didn't have the collective bargaining experience because we had Mike. So there's a whole lot of variables you need to think about here. And I agree with the chairman. I think it's a separate item, but we do need to have a job description for the county attorney's office. I think that's most important anyways. And then we need to look at how we're going to vet things. I have no issue with us advertising to 100 different groups throughout the state of Florida, whoever they may be. And I would love to see a local guy, if they want to apply, get the job that was qualified. But I'm not in a position to vet some of the things that are required. I don't know anything about certain areas of law. Our chairman's an attorney. She's more qualified than I am, but yet I'm qualified in other areas. So I think it's the things that she talked about that we need to look at. We need to look at the option of doing the things of advertising. We need to look at the option of having a professional recruiter vet the process, because I do want to find a diamond out there somewhere that's maybe in the rough, but we need to do this the right way. If we all get involved in this, it's going to be probably not a good thing if we all have our opinion until the time comes for us to give our opinion.
Well, yes, I would just, when you send what it is that you would like to see in the attorney or requirements or experience, please try to triage it by what is more important to you. Because let's be realistic, while I'm sure we are all looking for, the perfect person that knows everything about everything, there's not going to be, I doubt, a magical unicorn applicant that's going to know in-depth collective bargaining and land use and eminent domain and transactions and personal injury or whatever we decide's on our list. So I think we should just be a little bit realistic and let's maybe part of the conversation after we get somebody here or on board in that position is, what does our attorney's office need to be provided as far as resources, so we don't have as many outside counsel options, if that's something that the commissioners aren't comfortable with. But that's a much longer term conversation, and I want to focus on short term, which is get me your requirements and we'll bring it back on the 20th. All right. If there's nothing else for the good of the order, stand adjourned.